Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, they've set in stone. But it's not too late now for you to change your tone. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul. Don't harden your heart. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul.
Hey everybody, I am home. It's been a long, crazy day. And God knows I need to sleep. But there is always later. So let's see, who do we have on today? Not too many people yet. I know it's still early because it doesn't start until like 6:30. You're moving to Sharpsburg. It's a quaint little town. Let's take a peek at the YouTube. Yeah, they didn't start yet. It says 10 minutes, so because it did say 6:30, so I just wanted to get on just to make sure I could still get on and start to see who's here. And hopefully your numbers will pick up a little bit. Curtis needs a job. He quit WABC. Oh my God. I saw that while I was flying home. I was listening to this and I was like, oh my God. And I pulled up the interview. He called into Sid's show and said, like, I'm done. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And then as I'm driving home, I left WABC on the radio and I'm listening to Dominic Carter urging him to quit. And all the other callers it's gotta be a tough night when your boss, your colleagues are telling you step down because you can't win this. I have never heard anything like this before. And, it's got to get into your head a little bit. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Hey, Ruth, it's good to see you. What do you mean for real you're moving to Georgia? Hello, LM. I am tired. You see, tired. I was up at 6 a.m. this morning to get bagels for the lady that watches my Jules here. And so when I came home to pick her up, I had bagels to give her. And I'm not a morning person, and I had an early flight to get to the airport. Well, I guess it left at 11, and I didn't get home till 3:30. Well, I didn't land until 3:30. So it's just one thing after another. Traffic, get my car, get back home. So it's a lot for one day, for a couple days. Yesterday was a late day, and I got my contractor working outside trying to fix my deck. So I'm hoping he goes home soon. How are the bagels compared? Okay, there are no bagels here where I live. The only place I could get a good bagel is if I drive into Atlanta. And then there's Goldberg's Bagels, and they used to be from Forest Hills until the Goldberg family sold their bagel place. The quality went down a smidgen, but honestly, it's the only place that's closest to a New York bagel, and you could still get it like you'd get it at home with the cream cheeses or the lox and the capers and the onions and the tomatoes and whatever. So, but it's like a good 45-hour ride to get bagels. So I don't even bother. When I come into the city, I get bagels, I take them back home, but I didn't get bagels for me today. I had my breakfast bagel, and then I brought a little pack of bagels um, for my best buddy down here who watches my baby. So, how do you do it, my dear? God bless you. Well, it's wearing on me. I will tell you. I'm tired. I will need to, though, relax this weekend. I will tell you that for sure. Hey, John, how you doing? Liz, the more Curtis stands his ground, the more respect he earns. I am a liberal Democrat, but I am taking note, especially since he supports retirees. So listen, guys, of the three primary candidates, right, you only have one that won't talk to us, won't work with us, won't sign our pledge, won't talk to you, won't come on our live on Friday. I mean, yes, I had a tentative booking. I had a Curtis booked first. I had a tentative booking for Cuomo for Friday as well. And today they confirmed. So I was like, okay, so our team said they'll reach out to Zoran again, but this whole time in 10 months, you can't answer an email, answer a phone call. And it's not just me that's calling. Our team is calling. We hired a government liaison that helps us with these kinds of communications. Nothing. I should probably plug in my internet. Give me 1 second. Because what'll happen is I'll start streaming and my speed will slow down. Okay. What else? Angel. Hello, Marianne. Good to see you. What's with the new court cases? Angel, do you get our emails? Are you a member of our organization? Do you get our newsletter? Because all of that information is in there on a weekly basis. Signs are all over the place in Queens for Curtis and no other candidate. Okay. Katie Honan, please ask our question tonight. Do it for Rockaway. Nat, but Curtis has no chance to win, not even dog catcher, right? Lynn, there are also actives following this. No love for those who don't support. Thank you, Liz. So, I mean, like, that's really important to know because a lot of our active workers, we know we have active workers that are following us and what we do and support what we've been doing because they're very well aware of what their union leadership has or has not done. And that we've also been very public about our political stance in who's supporting who. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of important to know, right? But we do appreciate you following because one day you will be us and this will be your fight as well. Katie, support Den 96. We got to get, trust me, I called Katie Honan yesterday. She knows what we're doing. Errol knows what we're doing. He like hearted our post yesterday. So Jesse James, this new health plan for retirees, does it help retirees who live outside of New York City? So, Jesse, we've talked about this a lot, quite honestly. It does provide a national network. The issues we have raised are multiple in that this new plan, the union leadership of the Municipal Labor Committee agreed to save $1 billion in this health insurance plan without anywhere in the contract provision that's visible to actually tell you what will happen if they don't meet the $1 billion in savings. They've done this before. That's why they're in the position they are. And Alan Klinger, the lawyer for the MLC, literally told them on the day of the vote, if you don't pass this plan, the city of New York will continue with the 2 litigations against them that's currently in court to push them into arbitration because they say that the unions owe them $4.8 billion for savings arrangements, health benefit agreements to save money in health benefits that they had not lived up to. So if you're watching them enter into yet another agreement in where these details are not spelled out and you are a beneficiary of this plan, you should have some concern. Does it provide you a network? Yes, it does. And if they don't meet the savings, guess what? You will be paying for that. And there's nowhere in there that tells you that we could see how much. Remember what they told Medicare retirees? You'll have a $15 copay. And then when the copays came out, they were $15 on every single service. That amounted to about $65 a visit in many cases. It's bankrupting them or putting them in medical debt. And that's a problem. So, go Sleewood. Giuliani won. As people were fed up with crime, Curtis even supported us attending our rally. I just want you to remember the math, because even when there was just 2 candidates running, Curtis still only pulled about 20-something% of the vote. So it really wasn't a lot. But, let's see what happens. So let me take a peek and see if they started yet. They did. Commercial. Whoops. I'll just keep watching it because right now there's a commercial on. Let's see. At 7 p.m., WNYC is having a live debate with the... Yes, that's why we're here. Yep, I gotcha. Okay, let's see. Still commercial.
I'm the only candidate who says we've got to, across the board, cut the taxes.
I'm not a con man. I'm not a phony.
This is a man who led the state of New York for more than a decade, couldn't name a single mosque.
Joe Mondami and Cuomo are like 2 peas in a pod.
Mamdani is the existential threat. If you believe that, you should defer to the strongest candidate.
Cuomo should just run a better campaign. He spends more time speaking about other candidates than he does about New Yorkers and the struggles they're facing.
I'm not going anywhere.
Trump is like Andrew Cuomo, beholden to billionaires and oligarchs.
The billionaires can conspire to pick their candidate. They failed with Cuomo the first time.
It's really between Cuomo and Mamdani. You're not going to throw your vote away on Curtis Lee.
When I'm sworn in on January 1st of 2026, We bring back law and order.
We have to build more housing. We need those 500,000 units. We need them quickly.
There is no ability for us to deliver a rent freeze or universal child care or fast and free buses if we are not willing to say that this is the bare minimum this city deserves.
Good evening and welcome to New York One's special coverage of tonight's debate for mayor. I'm your host, Bobby Kuza. We are now less than 30 minutes away from the start of the second and final general election debate. New York One is co-hosting the 90-minute debate with WNYC Radio Gothamist, the nonprofit newsroom The City, and the city's campaign finance board. The three candidates, Andrew Cuomo, Zohran Mamdani, and Curtis Sliwa, will make their pitch to voters on stage shortly at LaGuardia Performing Arts Center at LaGuardia Community College. And as we count down to the start of the debate, I am joined by a panel of top political journalists to help set the stage and tell us what we can expect tonight. We have New York One's own Courtney Gross and Ayanna Harry. And also joining us is Ben Max, executive editor at New York Law School Center for New York City Law and host of the Max Politics podcast. The law school is another co-sponsor of tonight's debate. And out in central Brooklyn, our Dan Rivoli is standing by at a debate watch party hosted by the city's campaign finance board. But we begin with our Kelly Mena, who is standing by in Long Island City outside LaGuardia Community College. Good evening, Kelly. Tell us what the scene's like out there.
Well, there's not much to see right now, but about an hour ago, there were supporters for all three candidates out here cheering on their preferred candidate. The candidates have all arrived as of now. The debate has been set, and now there's only left for them to spar against each other. The supporters earlier were excited about tonight's debate. It's the final pitch that all candidates will have to get out their message clearly and with only a few days left until early voting to make their final pitch and get out their message clearly to voters so that they know what they stand for and what their policy proposals are. As I mentioned, the first two candidates to arrive were Zohran Mamdani and Curtis Sliwa. Just minutes ago, Cuomo arrived just before around 6:30. We were able to catch up with Sliwa and Mamdani, and here's what they had to say going into the building.
I'm the man of the people, and this election will determine who becomes the next mayor. Let the people vote, not the billionaires, not the political elite. A novel idea. Let people vote to determine who the next mayor is.
Zohran, how are you feeling about tonight's debate? We were also able to catch up with some of the supporters out earlier today. Many of them lining up as early as 1:30 to be out here to cheer on their candidate. And here's what they had to say about standing out here, cheering on their candidate, and what exactly are the answers they're looking to get tonight so that they can either reaffirm their position for their candidate or possibly make a change.
I'm sticking with Curtis. He can't be bought, and he won't sell out.
I think he speaks the loudest to working class people, such as myself, people who are concerned about day-to-day expenses, such as my rent, such as how much I have to pay to commute to work every day.
Andrew Cuomo's been great for the middle class when he was governor. We had tons of work for union labor. He was behind the rebuilding of LaGuardia Airport. Andrew Cuomo stands with the middle class. He stands with the unions.
And as you heard right there, many of the same issues that have come up on the campaign trail, affordability, the economy, and safety, were the same issues that we spoke to voters about earlier today. Back to you, Bobby.
Kelly, I noticed Zohran Mamdani was on a MTA bus as he arrived. That was obviously an intentional choice.
Yeah, that's right. He was on the Q39. He made that choice because obviously one of his campaign platforms is to make buses free and to make them better. Came off of that bus to quite a crowd, quite a crush of media, and made his way inside. He shook some hands, spoke to those that were supporting him outside earlier today as he walked in. We tried to get a question to him about how he was feeling about tonight and possibly about what his administration could look like. We weren't able to get that many answers, but we'll see how he does on the debate stage, Bobby.
All right, Kelly Mena, thank you. We'll be back with you later. Meanwhile, the candidates have been busy on the campaign trail all week, and our Ayanna Harry has been out covering it all, and the candidates themselves have been asked how they are approaching tonight's debate. Ayanna.
That's right, Bobby. This final face-off between the mayoral candidates now just a few minutes away. We are expecting to see a clash of policies and personalities.
The whole city is engaged, and that is why I think that this is the thriller in Manila.
The stage is being set. The countdown is on for one final showdown in the race for New York City mayor. 7 p.m. Wednesday night, New York One will host the second and last debate before New Yorkers head to the polls to select the next mayor.
This is the most important debate that we've had in a very long time.
Independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, Democrat Zohran Mamdani, and Republican Curtis Sliwa will spar in the 90-minute live televised debate, standing on stage at the LaGuardia Performing Arts Center in Queens. The candidates will have the opportunity to ask each other a question, and there will be a lightning round.
I'm ready.
Sliwa telling New York One when it comes to debate prep.
As I always prepare, by going into the subways, by talking to average, everyday working people, because they'll give me a lot of concepts and ideas that I can throw out on the stage.
Mamdani's expectations?
I think it will be more of the two of them speaking to each other and me speaking to the needs of New Yorkers.
And Andrew Cuomo opened up about what will be the key to his debate performance.
It's a balance. You don't want to be too aggressive because then, you know, everyone has a critique. You're too aggressive. They say you're a bully. You're not aggressive enough. They say you're too soft.
New York One is hosting the Wednesday night debate along with WNYC Gothamist and the news outlet The City. Viewers can catch the political crossfire live by watching New York One, NewYork1.com, or the New York One YouTube channel. Political analyst J.C. Polanco believes this debate could be a decision-making moment for New Yorkers who still don't know who to vote for.
They're looking at this as a job interview. Are you qualified? What's your vision? What in your background says you can handle an opportunity like this? And can we trust you with the keys to City Hall and to be CEO of New York City government?
So this could be a really important moment for undecided voters, but there aren't a whole lot of undecided voters left. A recent poll from Quinnipiac University found among likely voters, only 3% are still undecided, Bobby.
All right, so let's bring in the rest of our panel, Courtney and Ben. Let's talk about the state of the race and what to expect tonight. I mean, it seems like this is Zohran Mamdani's race to lose at this point, at least if you look at the poll numbers. And, you know, the conventional wisdom is he just needs to not make any mistakes. As long as he doesn't faceplant tonight, then he can kind of clinch this, whereas Cuomo really needs some kind of breakout moment to really sort of draw blood from Mamdani. Is that where we're at?
What do we know about Zohran Mamdani is he is an excellent communicator. I mean, this is what we've seen in the primary up until the general election, and whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on Instagram, or whether it's live in person, he has a way of communicating and connecting with people when he's speaking to them. And what's different with our debate versus the first debate that we saw last week is there's a live studio audience, and obviously there's going to be supporters and people who are not supporters in that audience, but I wonder if that's going to provide some more energy and just a different vibe within the room for those candidates.
And also, since the debate last week, there's been a lot more animosity between Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. So we could see a scenario where much of the night Cuomo and Sliwa go after each other and Mamdani is able to really focus on his message and his policies.
Yeah. No, I think it could be very interesting if Andrew Cuomo brings that pitch actually to the debate stage to try to convince anybody tuning in or people seeing the coverage after to say, abandon Curtis Sliwa, I'm your only shot at stopping Mamdani. I mean, Cuomo has retained a certain number of Democrats from the primary, right? Somewhere around a third of Democrats, which is a significant number. It's why Mamdani's stuck where he's stuck in the polling we've seen. But he needs those Republican votes to abandon Sliwa and go with a former governor who all of those Republicans probably voted against 3 times. So he might need to really come and make that pitch to voters on the stage.
We're all used to covering this race and watching these guys. I wonder if we're going to hear anything new tonight. I mean, we've heard all the attack lines, right, the past few months. Cuomo has consistently attacked Mamdani as an extremist. He brings up, you know, decriminalizing prostitution and getting rid of misdemeanors and says he's going to throw open the jails and let all the criminals out onto the streets. I mean, not to mention the anti-Semitism factor. Are we going to hear more of that tonight, Courtney, or is there going to be something new?
I think we're going to hear the barbs and the criticisms that we've been hearing along the campaign trail for multiple months. But what I hope our debate will be able to clarify for many voters is their positions on certain policies. I mean, a lot of the debate last week was just, you know, arguing between Cuomo and Mamdani, and hopefully this time around people are really going to be able to learn about what would this man be like if he were elected mayor. I mean, Zohran Mamdani, for one, has talked about how maybe he supports mayoral control. Oh wait, he doesn't support mayoral control, but he wants to retain the position of the chancellor and keep control over that. There's a lot of questions out there about, well, what does that mean for the close to 1 million school children in New York City? And I think that those are the kinds of answers that we're hoping to get to tonight.
I'm going to be looking for some nuance from the candidates, so we know where they stand on the surface level when it comes to different policies. Like, for example, public safety. We know Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Lewa want to add more officers. Zohran Mamdani wants to keep the NYPD at current staffing levels. But I think there is going to also be a question: what else? What more do you want to do when it comes to public safety? We know a little bit about their educational plans, but I think New Yorkers are still yearning for more answers. And so that's what I'm looking forward to tonight, whether or not the candidates will either be able to provide new policies or provide more depth to their platforms than what we've heard in the past.
I'm excited about all the substance, absolutely. I also think, to your question, I'm very interested to see if Andrew Cuomo has anything new that he is going to bring out, whether it's against Lewa or Mamdani, because he knows he's in his last-ditch effort here to make a wave to change the dynamics of this race, if we believe the polling that we've seen. So that will be very interesting. The other thing is, how does Mamdani approach this? Does he want to just sit back and let Sliwa and Cuomo go at each other, or is he going to try to interject himself sometimes so that he's not sort of an afterthought? Because one of the key questions of this race, which I expect Cuomo to talk about a lot tonight, is experience and who's mayoral and who's ready to be mayor. And so that'll come up across any of the issues that might come up.
One attack line that it seems like Cuomo has been kind of test driving lately is he says that Mamdani is a mini-me Bill de Blasio. I mean, he even had this campaign video he put out that was like AI with the characters from Austin Powers. So, I mean, I guess he's trying to tie Mamdani to someone who left office as a pretty unpopular mayor, but I don't know if there's such hostility to Bill de Blasio that's really going to make a difference.
There are a lot of people who don't like Bill de Blasio, but there are a lot of people who like Bill de Blasio's programs. I mean, he added 2 school grades onto the New York City Department of Education. If it weren't for Bill de Blasio, then we wouldn't have universal pre-K. And I think Andrew Cuomo was actually not wrong with the mini-me Instagram AI-generated ad. When I saw it yesterday, I chuckled. And I said, well, he's kind of right, actually, because even think about the people that Mamdani is rumored to be considering to bring into any potential administration. These are people like Anthony Shorris, Dean Houlihan, people that actually worked for Bill de Blasio. And he has even said, Mamdani has even said during a previous debate, I believe in the primary, that who is the best mayor, living mayor, or during your lifetime? We know his lifetime is shorter than everybody else's on stage.
Right, he didn't really have...
He did just have a birthday over the weekend, so happy belated birthday. He's 34. But he did say Bill de Blasio was the best mayor of his lifetime. So I don't think that he thinks it's a bad thing.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will head to a debate watch party in Prospect Lefferts Gardens, Brooklyn next. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
So we're just going to wait a couple of seconds because I'm sure they'll come back. I'll keep watching the screen and see when they return. So get your popcorn because I'm sure my popcorn is my dinner tonight. We're going to need it, I guess. And see what happens. See the action for today. I know. I think at 9 o'clock. I think they're going to do, or 10 o'clock. They're going to do a recap of what happened today. So, talking about the debate. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see what other questions you guys have here. I got my letter about Emblem Health switching. Yes. Those are coming out. They have to let you know November 1st is open enrollment. So you do need to know. Please also keep checking the link that we put up on our website, nycretirees.org. Go to the pre-Medicare retiree, active worker pre-Medicare retiree page. Click the link. Please make sure that your doctors and hospitals are in there. If they are not, please fill out our survey so that we could tell you, we could look into that for you, because there are some quirks, and we want to make sure that while, we're doing our due diligence, that your doctors are actually in this program. So that's super important. Hello, Long Beach. How are you today? You're welcome, Jay. Yes, and please, right after you check your facilities, your hospitals, doctors, whatever, there's a link on that page as well. It goes to a Google Doc, which is a spreadsheet that will let you put in your contact information so that we can call you if we have a question, and where you could also write like your doctors and where they are if you're not finding them in the network. Okay, so we want to be able to help you out with that. Great. Awesome. Very good. Let's see. Are they back on? Not yet. Still commercial. So, and also go to our Facebook page or in our newsletter. We put out a link to ask questions for our guests on Friday, because Curtis Lee will be on at 5, and then Andrew Cuomo will be on at 6. Yes, of course, we've always invited all the candidates, but one still keeps ignoring us. I cannot tell you why. And some people keep saying, but he says on his website, healthcare, Medicare. No, he says he won't do Medicare Advantage for in-service workers. He doesn't talk about retirees. They're back on. Hold on.
In the race for mayor, here's a live look at the stage inside LaGuardia Community College, where the candidates will have one last chance to make their case to voters and probably throw some punches at their opponents along the way. We're going to go now to New York One's Dan Rivoli, who is standing by at a watch party being hosted by the city's campaign finance board in Prospect Lefferts Gardens, Brooklyn. Good evening, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Bobby. We're here at Sweet Catch, a soul food, seafood restaurant here in Prospect Lefferts Garden. And this is the place here in the neighborhood to watch the New York One debate. This is, as you mentioned, sponsored by the New York City Campaign Finance Board. They even got this great little bingo right here, and even a spot here for Errol Lewis, moderator, cut someone off. That's one of the bingo spots here. I've been talking to voters, a lot of Mamdani voters here. Affordability has been such a key issue for a lot of voters, but we have this gentleman right here, Mr. Andrew Beard, a retired firefighter and one of the few undecided voters here in New York. Mr. Beard, thank you so much for speaking with New York One. We were talking earlier. Why has this been such a tough decision on who to vote for?
Oh, well, that's in itself a tough question. Why is it so tough? We're living in there's so many candidates. First of all, a lot of the candidates are coming with questionable paths. When I say past, I mean their past are questionable. And there's a lot of controversy about different things that they've been involved in. And I remember when the pandemic hit, how that was handled. Right now we're in a crisis where our White House, if you will, is threatening to cut funds to the city if we elect certain people, which I think is totally abominable.
So the city's at a precarious time for you in this election.
I would put it that way. It is precarious, and the other thing too is longevity. I like to know a little bit about the candidates that I vote for. And I do know a little bit about these candidates, but I can't commit at this time because their pasts are questionable.
And what are you looking for in this debate to learn about the candidates, and how will that help you ultimately land on a decision?
All right, I sat in a few of these, what you might, not debates, but I've had a few candidates had opportunities to listen to a lot of their promises. And basically, they're all promising the same thing. One is saying, I'm the one for that, I'm the one that can handle Trump, I'm the one that's going to provide better housing, better employment, and cheaper prices, and,
all things you care about.
All the things that I care about, and it's not just me. This city basically really needs a lot of medical facilities, doctors, and healthcare, education. I mean, the whole show.
Mr. Beard, thank you so much. I just want to introduce some voters we spoke to earlier. You're going to hear from another undecided voter and a Mamdani voter about issues they say are driving the decision in the race. Do you plan to vote, and have you decided on a candidate?
So I do plan on voting. I'm here basically to get a lot more information that I have already gathered on my own. It's important for me to, make informed decisions. So the intention is to listen to all the candidates, hear what they have to say, and get an idea of how I want to vote. But I am registered to vote, and I do plan on voting.
Do you know who you're voting for? Are you deciding?
I have decided who I voted for. I kind of switched sides, and I wanted to come to this debate because I saw the first one, but then I decided to come to this one to make up my mind totally. But I think I know who I'm voting for.
All right, we'll be checking with voters during the debate and after. We'll bring you more commentary from here at Prospect Lefferts Garden from this watch party for the New York One debate. Bobby, I'll send it back to you.
Dan Rivoli, thank you. Let's go back to my panel. Courtney Gross, Ayanna Harry, and Ben Max. Ayanna, you spent a lot of time covering the Cuomo campaign this campaign season. I just want to get your thoughts on Cuomo. I mean, he has spent so much time trying to tear down Mamdani these last couple of months. He does have his own policy proposals. I feel like he gets sometimes unfairly knocked for not having any of his own ideas. But also, lest we forget, he's got his own baggage. I mean, last week's debate, he had to spend a lot of time on his heels having to talk about the sexual harassment allegations, having to talk about COVID deaths in nursing homes. So that has also really been a hindrance.
Yeah, and these are issues that will forever follow former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He was in office for 11 years. During that time, he was incredibly effective as a lawmaker, but Andrew Cuomo also picked up a reputation during that time as being a bully, as someone who strong-armed his way into getting his way in terms of passing legislation. So he has certainly faced questions as recently as just yesterday on his record, on his style as governing as the leader of New York State. And I will say on the campaign trail, he has tried to roll out a few more policy proposals in recent days to try and separate himself from some of the other candidates. He's now calling for the city to take back more control over the subway and Capitol projects. And he also has this vision that gained a lot of attention for Rikers Island. Andrew Cuomo is essentially saying there's nothing wrong with Rikers Island, the island itself. The issue is the current facilities there. So he wants to abandon the plan to build new borough-based jails and instead build new facilities on Rikers Island. He says you can do this by building state-of-the-art facilities, make them humane, bring express buses from all 5 boroughs and ferries to get people to Rikers Island more easily. But that's a pretty bold policy platform that he's put forward in recent days.
Ben, let's talk about Curtis Sliwa a little bit, who I think, against the odds, has become one of the most compelling storylines of these last 2 weeks, particularly because he's come under immense pressure to drop out of the race, including from his boss, John Catsimatidis, from the editorial boards, including the New York Post. But he is defiant. I mean, he hasn't given an inch that he's even thinking about getting out of this race.
Well, he is a singular New York character, right? So we know that coming in, and that remains true. He did also, on the other hand, get support from the 5 county party chairs of the Republican Party. He is the Republican Party nominee for mayor. To just bow out of the race for a former governor who's a Democrat is a very tough pill for him to swallow. The Republican candidates down the ballot don't want him to beg off. So it's a very tricky situation. And Curtis, we know, goes his own way. He's also 71 years old, right? So he's not as worried, I don't think, about having the job at WABC to go back to. Maybe he is. He's got a lot of expenses and children to take care of and all that he talks about on the campaign trail. But this is a very different situation. I am interested, though, to see tonight. We don't know. This could be a situation where something switches for Curtis, and on the stage tonight, he's got a totally different message. We don't know what we're going to see, and that's part of why tonight's going to be very interesting viewing.
As we were watching the feed of the candidates at the stage and at the lecterns and kind of practicing, seeing where the shot was going to be, we know that during last week's debate, Curtis Sliwa took off the beret, and he's been doing that at events all across the city, specifically, speaking to real estate or business leaders. But tonight, the shot of him practicing and the shot of him outside was wearing the beret. So are we going to see kind of the old school Curtis come here and say, I don't really care what anybody thinks of me. I'm not dropping out of this race. Billionaires can try to bribe me all they want, which is something that he has said has allegedly occurred on the campaign trail, but he's going to stick with it.
Yeah, and I will say Curtis Sliwa has run a pretty vigorous campaign, right? I have been out and about in the city in recent days. I see Curtis Sliwa signs almost everywhere, in Lower Manhattan, in East New York, Brooklyn, on Staten Island. Curtis Sliwa has campaign offices in all 5 boroughs. He has volunteers who are out there knocking on doors. We see him day in and day out, showing up at local, small events happening in neighborhoods all over the city. So Curtis Sliwa has made a real effort to connect with New Yorkers on that grassroots level, and that's been one of his primary criticisms of Andrew Cuomo. It's like, you're calling on me to drop out of the race. Lee was saying, well, why don't you get out there and run your own campaign?
But he's also polling at roughly half of the 28% that he got in the last election when he lost by 40. So he is not having a good time of it because Cuomo is pulling some Republicans, if we're to believe the polling that we've seen, from across the board. So he is out there vigorously campaigning, but he's also struggling in this race clearly, and that's why some of his allies are calling him to get out. Very quickly, I'd also add, one of the voters that Dan spoke with got at this, the Trump factor, right, is going to be part of this debate again. We just saw the federal raid in Canal Street. That there's more of that likely to come. You know, what are the candidates going to say about that, and how they'd handle that situation will be key.
Courtney, just about a minute left, but I wanted to get you on the news we heard tonight about Zohran Mamdani asking the current police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, to stay on the job. This has been a subject of much speculation. You know, it seems like that is a decision, obviously it's a huge decision that the mayor has to make, and it might be something that would appeal to the more moderate voter because Jessica Tisch has been seen as part of the establishment, but has also done a lot to try to reform the NYPD.
Yeah, I mean, he has floated this idea previously. When asked, he would said that he would consider it, and the New York Times is saying that it is a definite, but if he were to actually win this race. And going to what we were talking about earlier about his age, you know, he just turned 34 years old, and one of the concerns, or one of the things he has said to the business community and the other political elites within the city is that I will surround myself with people who are experienced and know how to manage this city. So I think that this is a bit of a nod to that idea by keeping on the current police commissioner, who, although she's only been there, she took the job in November of last year. She hasn't been there that long, but a lot of people say that she's been doing a good job. Crime is heading in the right direction, and she's been trying to get corruption out of One Police Plaza.
Yeah. Although even if she's offered the job, we don't know if she'll want to accept it.
Yes, very true. Very true.
He's going to ask her to stay on does not mean that she is going to accept that offer. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's pre-debate special coverage. We are just moments away from the start of the final debate for mayor. You can head to the link on your screen. That's where our political team will be live blogging the best moments of the debate, and you can join the conversation on social media using the hashtag NY1Debate. And after the debate, keep it right here on New York One. As soon as the debate wraps up at 8:30, we will have a post-debate special with reaction and analysis and some special guests. Now here is our moderators, Errol Lewis, Brian Lair, and Katie Honan with the candidates at LaGuardia Community College in Queens.
Good evening. Welcome to the final general election debate in the race for mayor of New York City. I'm Errol Lewis, political anchor here at Spectrum News New York One, and we're coming to you live from the LaGuardia Performing Arts Center at LaGuardia Community College in Queens. Over the next 90 minutes, you're going to hear from the leading mayoral candidates about the biggest issues in New York, including the cost of living, the education crisis, and public safety. I'm joined tonight by Katie Honan of the news organization The City and Brian Lehrer of WNYC Radio and Gothamist.
Tonight's debate is brought to you by the New York City Campaign Finance Board, the city agency that administers the Public Matching Funds program. It's also sponsored by Spectrum News, New York One, WNYC Gothamist, and the news site The City, and Spectrum Noticias, and our co-sponsors, the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY, the Center for New York City and State Law at New York Law School, the Museum of the City of New York, and John Jay College of Criminal Justice. You can watch tonight's debate without a paywall on ny1.com. It is also being broadcast on NYC TV, WNYC Radio, C-SPAN, the Spectrum News YouTube page, and thecity.nyc. It's in Spanish on Spectrum Noticias and YouTube.
The candidates joining us tonight have met a fundraising threshold established by the Campaign Finance Board. The seat is currently held by Eric Adams, who has decided not to run for re-election. In alphabetical order, Andrew Cuomo is a former governor of New York running on an independent line. Zohran Mamdani is the Democratic nominee, representing parts of Queens in the State Assembly since 2021. And Curtis Sliwa is the Republican nominee and the founder of the Guardian Angels.
Now for the rules. The rules you see on your screen right now have been agreed to by all of the candidates. Each candidate will deliver an opening statement of up to 45 seconds, and then answers to our questions will generally be limited to 60 seconds with a chance for rebuttals. Candidates will have an opportunity to ask one opponent one question in our cross-examination round. So let's begin. This will be the last time all three candidates will be together on stage. The next mayor will be sworn into office 71 days from now on January 1st, 2026. He will inherit a city with an affordability crisis, a tense relationship with the federal government, and millions of New Yorkers who very likely did not support him. Let's begin our debate with your opening statements to viewers. You have 45 seconds. The order was determined by a random drawing on live television this morning, and we'll begin with Curtis Sliwa. Good evening.
Thank you. It's us versus them. It's us versus the insiders and the billionaires. It's us versus Cuomo. It's us versus Zohran. This is a campaign not about power. This is a campaign about you, the people. And I know many of you hardworking New Yorkers, you tell me you've been pushed aside, you've been silenced. These are the people that have all the money, all the connections. They've made their backroom deals, but we have something more important. We have you, the people. And we're not going to be silenced anymore. We're going to fight. Tonight, I want you to look at the content of my policies, to know that I've served this city for more than 50 years, the city that I love. And I'm going to share with you my vision to make New York City safer again, to make New York City more affordable again, and where everybody once again can live the American dream.
Thank you. Next is Andrew Cuomo. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. New York's first, thank you to the moderators. Thank you all for being here. And go Knicks, go Knicks, go Knicks. I hope we get an update on the score. New York is the greatest city on the globe. But we are at a pivotal moment. And the voters are going to have to decide in this election what candidate has the plan to save this city and what candidate can get it done, not just talk about it. My main opponent has no new ideas. He has no new plan. It's Bill de Blasio rehash, and we know how that turned out. He's never run anything, managed anything. He's never had a real job. I will hire 5,000 new police, build 500,000 new units. I will cut taxes. I will grow jobs. And I will end this hate-mongering and division that is tearing this city apart, because that's not who we are as New Yorkers. You know I can make change. You know I can make government work. I've done it before. I'll be ready on day one.
Okay, thank you. Next is Zohran Mamdani. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you to the moderators, and thank you to New Yorkers for tuning in. I know you'd rather be watching the Knicks.
While there are 3 candidates on this stage, you will hear only 2 messages. My opponents, who spend more time trying to convince the other to drop out than actually proposing their own policies, will speak only of the past, because that's all that they know. I am the sole candidate running with a vision for the future of this city. Andrew Cuomo will spend much of tonight attacking me. He is a desperate man, lashing out because he knows that the one thing he's always cared about, power, is now slipping away from him. He will amplify right-wing talking points, he will share conspiracy theories, and he will do these things to make you feel that this should keep you up at night. But I've been spending the last year listening to New Yorkers, and I know what actually keeps you up. It's whether or not you can afford to live a safe and dignified life in this city. I have plans for our future. My opponents only have fear.
Thank you very much, candidates. Let's start tonight with some breaking news that happened yesterday afternoon when federal agents descended on Canal Street, arresting street vendors who have been selling counterfeit designer merchandise for as long as any of us can remember. This is the first time we've seen major federal law enforcement activity in the city outside of arrests at Immigration Court in Lower Manhattan. And some critics are now ringing an alarm bell, calling it a dangerous and unprecedented use of federal agents in New York City. Others say that the vendors were a major quality of life problem in the neighborhood that the NYPD had ignored. So the candidate, I'll ask each of you to respond to this. How should the mayor and the NYPD have handled both the presence of the street vendors and then the federal action? We'll start with you, Mr. Cuomo.
I've had a lot of dealings with President Trump. And there's only one way to deal with him. He puts his finger in your chest, and you have to put your finger right back in his chest. I've actually had this situation with ICE interfering in New York before. It was upstate New York where ICE just showed up and started to take action. And I called the president, and I went down to the White House, and I said, that doesn't work in New York. You don't send ICE in without coordinating with our police. It's not smart, it's duplicative, and it's dangerous. We don't need ICE to do quality of life crimes. We don't need them to worry about illegal vendors. That's a basic policing function for NYPD, Consumer Affairs, etc. I would have called the president and I would have said, look, you're way out of bounds, they're way out of bounds, call them back or I'm going to have the NYPD step in and stop them. Because this is not their jurisdiction. You're in the city of New York.
Okay. Mr. Mamdani.
ICE is a reckless entity that cares little for the law and even less for the people that they're supposed to serve. What we need to be doing here in our city is to end the chapter of collaboration between City Hall and the federal government, which we've seen under Mayor Adams. What we need to do is actually pass the street vending reform bills that have been in the city council, some of which that this mayor has actually overridden. That's an example of how we can both protect street vendors, ensure quality of life, and leave no stone unturned in delivering for the people of the city, as opposed to working with a president who is looking to declare war on those same people.
Mr. Sliwa.
Unlike both of my adversaries, I've patrolled that area many times, Church and Canal. And as you said, Errol, that activity has been going on for a long time. Selling the knockoff, sometimes stolen contraband by a series of people. The local 5th Precinct, they make arrests when they have obviously cause to do so, and they complain that they have to release them because of no cash bail, of which both of my adversaries are in favor of and I'm not. The feds should not have stepped into this situation. There is not communication between the local authorities and the feds. This is a matter that should have been left up to the NYPD. But we can't tolerate citizens attacking our federal law enforcement forces in the street because then that will just lead to anarchy.
Let me ask a related question. President Trump has been commenting on this race and all of you on a regular basis. He's been less than glowing when talking about each of you, especially you, Mr. Mamdani. I'd like you each to describe whatever combination of defiance, diplomacy, and cooperation you will use as mayor if President Trump continues to increase the federal government's role in the affairs of our city while also threatening to decrease funding. Start with you this time, Mr. Sliwa.
Well, both my adversaries have decided to bump chests with President Trump to prove who's more macho. You can't beat Trump. He holds most of the cards. He's already cut federal funding for Medicaid, for the SNAP program, and is threatening to cut funds for NYCHA. So if you're all of a sudden going to get adversarial, you're going to lose. And who gets hurt? The people of New York City. With Trump, it's always the art of the deal. You have to go, you have to try to negotiate, whether it's with his minions or himself. He'll want you to give in order to get a little bit. But if you immediately act like you're going to take him on, like, you know, it's going to be a one-on-one fight, we're going to lose. All the people in New York City are going to lose. You have to be able to show respect. And I think if you show respect, you'll get respect, and you'll protect the New Yorkers who are so desperately in need of federal funds. What's the good of it? They'll bump chests with Donald Trump. They won't get the money, and then they'll blame Donald Trump. I will negotiate with Donald Trump and try to get the best deal possible for our poor and indigent citizens.
Okay, Mr. Cuomo.
Yeah, the difference on this question is I've actually lived it, and I've done it with President Trump over many years through the most difficult situation that this country has gone through, COVID plus. You're wrong. You're going to have to confront President Trump. He is hyper-aggressive, and he is going to overstep his bounds. And you are going to have to confront him. And you can beat him. I confronted him, and I have beaten him. He was going to quarantine New York during COVID, and I stopped him. He was going to cut aid to federal programs, and I stopped him. But you also want to be in a place where you can cooperate on good things, because we need federal help if we're going to save our city and rebuild our city. President Trump has to respect you. He sent the National Guard into 20 cities. City he didn't send it into? New York. Because I talked to him and I said, we don't need you here. He has said he'll take over New York if Mondami wins, and he will, because he has no respect for him. He thinks he's a kid and he's going to knock him on his tuchus. So it is a balance, but you're going to have to be adversarial when you need to, but you want to cooperate to get good things done in this city, and you need federal help.
Mondami.
We first just heard from the Republican candidate for mayor, and then we heard from Donald Trump's puppet himself, Andrew Cuomo. You could turn on TV any day of the week, and you will hear Donald Trump share that his pick for mayor is Andrew Cuomo. And he wants Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor, not because it will be good for New Yorkers, but because it will be good for him. Look, Donald Trump ran on 3 promises. He ran on creating the single largest deportation force in American history. He ran on going after his political enemies, and he ran on lowering the cost of living. If he wants to talk to me about the 3rd piece of that agenda, I will always be ready and willing. But if he wants to talk about how to pursue the 1st and 2nd piece of that agenda at the expense of New Yorkers, I will fight him every single step of the way.
Okay. Short rebuttal from Mr. Cuomo.
That's not what Donald Trump said. Donald Trump does an analysis of the race. Donald Trump, I believe, wants Mondami. That is his dream, because he will use him politically all across the country, and he will take over New York City. Make no mistake. It will be President Trump and Mayor Trump, and he will come in and take over the city. I have no doubt. All he said was, his analysis is after the polls, it's a tough choice between a Democrat and a communist. And he considers Mondami a communist. He happens to be a socialist. But between a communist and a Democrat, it's a tough choice for him.
Okay. All right. Thank you, candidates. Brian wants to talk to you about some important issues on the minds of New Yorkers.
Hi, candidates. Thank you for coming tonight. Yeah, and the cost of living is our next topic. You've all cited it as a major factor, and of course so many New Yorkers are experiencing this, especially when it comes to rising housing costs. And many New Yorkers were shocked this week as a new report from the group Advocates for Children revealed that about 154,000 New York City public school students have been homeless at some point during the last year. 65,000 lived in homeless shelters. Even more were in doubled-up situations with no home of their own. It's never been over 150,000 before, they tell us. And it amounts to 1 in 7 New York City kids. As mayor, how would each of you tackle this problem to help this vulnerable population? And in this round, we're going to go Mr. Mamdani, Mr. Cuomo, Mr. Sliwa. So, Mr. Mamdani, you go first.
This is a stain on our city. to see this many children in our public school system be homeless, and to know that this is the 9th consecutive year that it's more than 100,000 of those children. What we need to do is ensure that next year is not the same. And we are going to do that by building the housing necessary such that New Yorkers are not priced out of this city or forced to live in shelters. And that's why my campaign is going to deliver 200,000 new affordable homes across the 5 boroughs, all while freezing the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants. Now, in the public school system, we also have a program called Every Child and Family is Known. It links a child who is living in a homeless shelter with an employee of the public school system. It also links that employee with the child's family. It's been shown to increase attendance records, self-esteem, a level of belonging in that school system. I am going to increase that pilot program to more than 200 schools, and we're going to do it because we have to deliver for these children.
Mr. Cuomo. Yeah. Zoran is a great actor. He missed his calling. Freeze the rent sounds great. Yeah, it affects about 25% of the number of housing units in the city of New York. It's not a new idea. Bill de Blasio did it. It turned out to be a debacle. And it does nothing for 75% of the units. And for the 25, it just postpones the increase and actually causes us to lose units because landlords took them off the market.
And ask you to address the homeless children question, and we will get to rent freeze.
Yeah, well, the answer to homeless children is you need more affordable housing. And I'm saying freeze the rent was done under de Blasio. It doesn't work. It's a canard and just a great 3-word slogan for TikTok. The way to increase availability of affordable housing is to build affordable housing. I was the HUD secretary. I did it all across the country. We have 1% vacancy rate. We're not building enough affordable housing, and you need a competent, productive government to do that. And that's what I've done across the country, across the state. Make government work. You get the supply up, the rents will come down.
Thank you, Mr. Sliwa. Okay, Mr. Mamdani, you were named, so you get 30 seconds.
We are in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 children in the New York City public school system being homeless. That means it began when Andrew Cuomo was the governor. And what did he do? What did he do about it? He did not do anything. He spent more money on a singing water fountain at LaGuardia Airport than he did on the average cost of an affordable housing unit. That is the record that we have in display, and what we need is a change in this city, not more of the same.
Yeah, but if I may, the homeless issue, number of homeless since I left, has more than doubled during his administration and the state's administration. Since I left, homeless rate has more than doubled. When I left, the vacancy rate on housing was 4.5%. It's now 1%. This man never even proposed a bill on housing or education. Never even proposed a bill.
Keep going back and forth between the two of you. Mr. Sliwa, it's your turn.
Andrew, you didn't leave. You fled from being impeached by the Democrats in the state legislature. Leave. You fled. But let's get back on topic, because I'm the only candidate up here who's been into many of the over 300 Department of Homeless Services shelters. And the family shelters are unsafe for the families there. We have to make them safer. We have to bring teachers into the shelter. Many times, the mothers or the guardian have to get on bus after bus and take them to a school that's 2 or 2.5 hours away. This is a horror situation that's taking place. And we have to prioritize this, because this number of homeless children is going to grow. It takes 5 years to build affordable housing. We need to address it in the shelters itself, to be able to handle it so that the teachers can come in, whether they're public school teachers, charter school teachers, and I know there are a number of parochial school teachers who love children who would volunteer their efforts to do that.
We're going to give it to Katie Honan now to ask about another aspect of affordable housing.
We're going to switch to the millions of New Yorkers who are renters, specifically those in rent-regulated apartments. There are more than 1 million New Yorkers living in these units, most of them rent-stabilized. Mr. Mamdani, you've proposed a rent freeze for these tenants. Mr. Cuomo, you don't support that, and you've proposed a new means test for having a rent-stabilized apartment. Mr. Mamdani, our question, how can you know in advance what the balance between landlord needs and tenant needs will be in future years? We've seen a lot of inflation in recent years. Haven't small landlords felt that pinch as well? And then we have other questions for the other candidates.
You know, we've seen time and again mayors use their power with the Rent Guidelines Board to hike the rent on those same more than 2 million New Yorkers. This same Rent Guidelines Board did a study that found that landlords of those units had seen their profits increase by more than 12%. Their response? Hike the rent on rent-stabilized tenants who have a median household income of $60,000. I believe that tenants across our city deserve relief, and I also believe that city government can work to alleviate the pressures for landlords of those units without having to put that burden on those same tenants. It's possible to keep New Yorkers in this city and to help landlords with rising insurance costs, water bills, Con Edison, and a broken property tax system.
Thank you. Mr. Sliwa, what's your proposal for helping New Yorkers with the historically high rent burdens in either stabilized or market rate units?
Well, the first thing, we have 6,000 empty apartments in NYC. That is a sin. That's what the mayor can control right away. We need to move those families with children in. For those who live in rent-stabilized apartments and have their rent subsidized, Zoran Mandami, we need to make sure that the big realtors, that they have to pay a vacancy tax because they're holding off on those apartments. They're not putting them out into the marketplace because they want to flip the building. Not for the mid-sized landlords or the small landlords. They need the help. And there are a number of people in the outer boroughs. They own a home. They live on the property. They're not absentee landlords. 2, 3, 4 apartments, and they're deciding not to put them in the marketplace when somebody either leaves or dies because they have to deal with tenant-landlord court, which is an absolute nightmare for small landlords. We got to make sure it's a fair playing field so that the tenants are protected, but the landlords are protected so they're not stuck with squatters for 4, 5, or 6 years, which destroys their equity and forces them to leave.
Thank you. Mr. Cuomo, you signed a law in 2019 repealing a means test to live in a rent-stabilized apartment. What's your position now, and what changed in that?
The 2019 law was added tenant protections that had never been added before, and protections against tenant evictions. But to answer your question, you cannot, Zoran said, the tenant doesn't have to pay more rent, but we're going to cover the landlord's costs. No, you can't do both, and that's not what happened. We did freeze the rent with de Blasio. We lost units because the landlords took them off the market because you weren't covering their costs. The reason the Rent Guidelines Board went up after the freeze was because you had to make up for all the backlog of costs. And this, I'm going to freeze the rent. And people think it applies to all of them. No, just the 25% of the units that are rent stabilized. And by the way, it's all BS because the mayor doesn't have the power to do it anyway. The Rent Guidelines Board does, and he doesn't control the Rent Guidelines Board. So nothing is going to happen. It's all this. It's just more political blather.
Mr. Mamdani, you can respond.
You know, if you want a candidate for mayor who tells you everything that he cannot do, then Andrew Cuomo should be your choice. If you want a candidate for mayor who will use every tool at their disposal, including the 9 appointees at the Rent Guidelines Board, all of whom are appointed by the mayor, then I am the candidate for you.
We have to go to Errol, sir. I'm sorry, you weren't named, so I'm sorry. We're going to go to Errol, talk about development.
Errol, my name was invoked. Can I get the rebuttal? Quickly. Okay, quickly. The mayor doesn't appoint the Rent Guidelines Board. He's wrong. They are appointed to a term, and they're on holdovers. And when the term is over, you can appoint. But it takes a number of years to get control.
Okay, understood. Candidates, right now we are just blocks away from the site of the Long Island City rezoning plan, which has been under consideration for a decade at this point, and in its latest version would create 15,000 new apartments. That plan, like the recently passed City of Yes 5-borough rezoning, reflects a reality that hundreds of thousands of units, as many as 1 million new units, will be needed in New York City over the next 10 years. What is your plan to get new units built quickly? And the order of this will be Mr. Cuomo, then Mr. Sliwa, then Mr. Mamdani.
Yeah, Sliwa said before it takes 5 years to build affordable housing. No, it doesn't. No, it shouldn't. That's an incompetent government. You can actually get competent government and well-managed government. I built LaGuardia Airport, even though he doesn't like it, in 4 years, okay? So don't tell me it takes 5 years to build a housing unit. You have to redo HPD. You have to change the entire organizational structure. You have the zoning, but you have to start hundreds, if not thousands, of sites simultaneously. Private sector developers, partner with not-for-profits, partner with CDCs, use city-owned sites, use air rights, make a deal with the unions. But this has to be the #1 priority. The way I did 2nd Avenue Subway or the Mayoral Cuomo Bridge or the Kosciuszko Bridge, this project is thousands of housing developments being accelerated, expedited, facilitated at one time. And we need 500,000 units. That's the way you're going to make New York City affordable and still allow the talent to come here.
Okay, Mr. Sliwa.
I'm the only candidate here on the stage who is opposed to the city of yes. Both my adversaries are for it. Make sure on Election Day when you turn over your ballot and you have the initiatives, you vote no. And you know how oftentimes I've been accused, how are you going to work with the Democratic-controlled city council? I, Adrian Adams, and the predominant Democrats, including many of them very liberal and progressive, believe no to yes. I have a simple plan. It takes a year. We have 25 Empire State buildings that would be empty and just have office space. It'll never be used because business doesn't operate the way it used to. Retrofit them to affordable apartments. Most are in Manhattan. The infrastructure is there. You set up a partnership with developers. It'll put men and women to work, and you'll get your affordable apartments a lot quicker and not be a burden to the outer boroughs and the residential communities because you're in the back pockets, Andrew, of the developers who wine, dined, and pocket-lined you.
Let me ask you a follow-up on that, Mr. Sliwa. Do you think each elected city council member should have basically veto power over whether or not housing gets built in their district?
Absolutely. Local control. Community boards should have their say. What happened to zoning? We throw it out? Eric Adams. This city of yes is on steroids, and he went wild taking care of his developer friends as he knew he would be one and done. I told you he was corrupt. I told you there would be chaos, and I warned you in 2021. You should have elected me mayor then.
Okay. Mr. Mamdani.
We need to build more housing all across New York City. Today, New York City builds about 4 houses for 1,000 people. Jersey City's at 7. Tokyo is at about 10. We need to do this by streamlining the processes of private sector construction across the city, by ensuring we're building more around hubs of mass transit. And we also need to ensure that the public sector is building truly affordable housing. And what I mean by truly affordable is housing that is built with the median household income in mind, which is $70,000 for a family of 4. And that's why my administration will do exactly that, scaling up programs we already had in HPD, like senior affordable rental apartments, SARA, like Ella, extremely low-level affordability. These are the kinds of programs that will deliver a city that New Yorkers can actually afford.
There was reference to the 3 housing-related charter amendment questions. I know Mr. Cuomo is on the record as saying he favors them. We just heard Mr. Sliwa say that he's against them. Where do you stand on those?
I'm appreciative that those measures will be on the ballot and that New Yorkers will be able to cast their votes for them. I know that we desperately need to build more housing in this city, and I also know that the jobs we create in the building of that housing should be good jobs as well.
What a political answer. What is your opinion, Zoran?
Yes or no?
Come on.
Yes or no?
What is your opinion? Yes or no, Zoran?
Truth.
Don't be a politician here.
I got it. They're pointing out what I was about to. Please answer the question.
No, I think on the stage you can see two people appealing for the Republican Party's votes. And myself.
Answer the question. Answer the question for once.
My question to you was, do you support the 3 ballot amendment questions?
I have not yet taken a position on those ballot amendment questions.
Oh, what a shocker.
All right.
What a shocker.
We're gonna
Don't
move
worry,
on.
once he takes it, he'll change it anyway.
We're going to move it on. We're going to move on. The candidates, the rhetoric on the campaign trail has become more heated in recent weeks. We have reached a point where 2 of the candidates on stage here tonight have armed security. I would like to spend a few minutes to see if we can dial down the rhetoric. Mr. Mamdani, some Jewish New Yorkers continue to say that your comments on Israel and the war in Gaza leave them feeling unsafe and concerned about their future in our city. Recently, several prominent New York rabbis took the unusual step of denouncing your candidacy, including the rabbi of the Park Avenue Synagogue in Manhattan and Rabbi Michael Miller, the longtime leader of the Jewish Community Relations Council, who is a friend to many of us. Do you have any regrets about how you've dealt with these issues, and will your longstanding views on the subject get in the way of your ability to be an effective mayor?
I look forward to being a mayor for every single person that calls this city home. Not just those who voted for me in the Democratic primary, not just those that vote for me in this general election, but all 8.5 million New Yorkers. And that includes Jewish New Yorkers who may have concerns or opposition to the positions that I've shared about Israel and Palestine. You know, just a few weeks ago, I was on the M57, the slowest bus in New York City. And as I was seated there, there was a speech therapist who was sitting next to me. She told me that she was Jewish. She said that her daughter was a huge fan, but that she was not yet decided on who she was going to vote for. And she shared to me about her fears in this city, about rising anti-Semitism. And I told her what I will tell New Yorkers today, which is that I will be the mayor who doesn't just protect Jewish New Yorkers, but also celebrates and cherishes them, who doesn't just increase funding to hate crime prevention programs by 800%, who doesn't just ensure that the NYPD are outside of synagogues and temples on the high holy days, but also actually delivers on the implementation of the Hidden Voices curriculum in our school system so that children in this city learn about the beauty and the breadth of the Jewish experience right here in the 5 boroughs.
Okay. I've got a different...
Yeah, but can I just comment on that, please? You know, not everything is a TikTok video. You're the savior of the Jewish people. You won't denounce, globalize the Intifada, which means kill Jews. There's unprecedented fear in New York. It was not several rabbis, Errol. It was 650 rabbis who signed the letter, not several.
Let me ask you a related question, Mr. Cuomo. Many New Yorkers have serious grievances with Israel and the way the Israeli government under Benjamin Netanyahu has conducted the war in Gaza and expanded settlements in the West Bank. What would you say to and how would you handle New Yorkers who are in the streets, if you were mayor, protesting the actions of the Netanyahu government?
Fine. That's your right. Protest, demonstrate, disagree. God bless America. God bless New York City. And there is no doubt that there's 2 sides on what's going on, and the passions are very high. That doesn't justify anti-Semitic behavior in New York. It doesn't justify having a Jewish population that feels unprotected in New York. It doesn't justify leaders who stoke the flames of hatred against Jewish people, which is what Zoran does, in my opinion.
I'll give him a chance to answer, and then we'll go to Mr. Sliwa.
You know, I've heard from Jewish New Yorkers about their fears about anti-Semitism in this city. And what they deserve is a leader who takes it seriously, who roots it out of these 5 boroughs, not one who weaponizes it as a means by which to score political points on a debate stage.
Mr. Sliwa.
Excuse me, Mr. Cuomo, it's my turn, all right? It's like 2 kids in a schoolyard.
Yeah, I heard you on the radio this morning.
Zoran, this is personal for me. I know you are under threat. The mother of my 2 youngest sons who are raised Jewish, Melinda Katz, is prosecuting this person who came up and tried to do you harm. But let me speak on behalf of my 2 sons. When they've heard some of the statements you've made, like in support of global jihad, and I hear some people out there saying the Jews, their time is due, which means the same thing. They're frightened, they're scared. They view you as the arsonist who fanned the flames of anti-Semitism. They cannot suddenly accept the fact that you're coming in like a firefighter and you're going to put out these flames. You've got a lot of explaining to do, a lot of apologizing to do. My sons are afraid. Their family, their friends, many in the Jewish community are concerned if you become mayor because they don't think when anti-Semitism rears its ugly head, which it's now doing more than ever before, that you will have the ability to come in and put out those flames of hate.
Okay, yeah, you can.
I think there is room for disagreement on many positions and many policies, but I also want to correct the record. I have never, not once, spoken in support of global jihad. That is not something that I have said, and that continues to be ascribed to me, and frankly, I think much of it has to do with the fact that I am the first Muslim candidate to be on the precipice of winning this election. Now, all the same, Curtis, I do still want to be the mayor that will keep your sons safe, that will keep every single New Yorker safe. And it is my job to not only deliver on that commitment, but also to ensure that New Yorkers feel it every single day that they live in this city.
Okay, candidates, Brian's going to take us into the next section.
Thank you, Errol. And the next section is some individual political questions, one for each of you. Let me start with you, Mr. Cuomo, then Katie will ask a question of Mr. Sliwa and Errol to Mr. Mamdani. Mr. Cuomo, the last time most New Yorkers saw you before this campaign was when you resigned your seat as governor under scandal in 2021. The most recent Quinnipiac University poll in this race shows that 54% of likely voters say you're unethical. Meanwhile, you also have strained relations with Governor Hochul, State Attorney General Letitia James, and others. What would you say right now to New Yorkers who have questions about your moral compass and concerns that you cannot effectively work with other elected officials?
Yeah, well, first, you somewhat misstated the facts, but I resigned because there was allegations made. I didn't want to waste the time and distract state government. I knew it was going to take a long time to sort out. I left, which I thought was respectful to state government. We sorted it out legally. Nothing came from any of the allegations. I was dropped from the cases. You know that. We've had this discussion 4 times, but you like to talk about the past rather than yesterday. I chose Governor Kathy Hochul. I would have no problem working with her. The legislature, I got 11 budgets passed on time, most in modern political history. They haven't gotten one done on time since I was there. So don't tell me who knows how to work with the legislature. And a mayor being able to deal with that legislature is key. Because don't kid yourself, I've watched every governor and mayor since Ed Koch. There is a tension between the city and the state. The city's arguing for its budgets, the state is saying no, and the city has been getting screwed by the state, and that has to change, and the city has to be doing better.
Thank you. Katie?
New Yorkers, you have often presented yourself as more of a well-known New York character than a serious policy expert. Your critics have said your candidacy is making it more likely that Zohran Mamdani can win the election. What do you say to them and to others who feel that while your name recognition has seen a boost, your candidacy is not helpful to New Yorkers, including those who share your views?
Number one, I have 13 campaign offices open. I'm throughout the outer boroughs. You see the excitement and energy of the working class people that I represent. I am the Republican populist candidate representing the working class, and I'm also, Katie, the candidate on the independent line, first ever, put together by my wife Nancy, who loves animals like so many. Save the animals, no-kill shelters, animal abusers go to jail. So people know that I'm not just running to protect people, which has been my life as leader of the Guardian Angels. I'm there to protect our pets and animals. Because remember, Mahatma Gandhi said, a society that does not take care of its animals does not take care of its people. Homeless, emotionally disturbed, veterans. I'm out there every day tending to their needs with the Guardian Angels, doing things that the city and state should have been doing a long time ago, but neglected them, and instead instead spent $7 billion on migrants that we don't even know. That is a disgrace. We should be there for our own people who are suffering and wallowing in desperation and despair.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani. You have criticized the politics of the past where leaders either avoid taking a stand on a key issue or try to be all things to all people. But at times during this campaign, you've carefully avoided answering tough questions. We saw an instance just a few minutes ago when I asked about how you plan to vote on those ballot initiatives next month. We've asked whether you support a major rezoning push for part of Queens, some of which is in your district. You've been unclear about how you think the city's schools should be run, its governance structure. How is that different from politics as usual?
When it comes to our schools, I believe that every single child deserves to have an excellent public education. And we have not seen that under the stewardship of those schools with this mayoral administration. We have not seen it because we are not fully funding those schools. We are not on track to comply with the class size mandates of those schools. We are not even on track to ensure greater literacy levels across those schools, despite the strides that have been taken with NYC REITs. When it comes to rezoning, I've been very clear that I will always celebrate the addition of additional housing units across the city. I also believe that Gantry State Park and Queensbridge Park should be one contiguous park. Those are things that one can believe at the same time. And my critiques of the politics of the past is right here on the stage. You can see in Andrew Cuomo someone who had 10 years to deliver on so much of what he's spoken about. He says that taking 5 years to build affordable housing is the sign of an incompetent government. By his own words, that means he must have led an incompetent government. That is what we are seeing, because that is the record that is actually on offer.
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand my friend doesn't really understand government. The governor doesn't build housing in New York City.
Not if it's you.
No, legally, there are jurisdictions. The governor doesn't pick up trash. He doesn't run the fire department. That's what the mayor does. The mayor builds housing. The state allocates funding for localities. And I allocated more funding for housing than any governor in the history of the state of New York. All right? I did things. You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government. You don't know how to handle an emergency. And you've literally never proposed a bill on anything that you're now talking about in your campaign. You had the worst attendance record in the assembly. And you gave yourselves the highest raise in the United States of America. You went from $110,000 to $140,000, and then you never showed up for work, and you missed 80% of the votes. Shame on you. Shame on you.
No, it is always a pleasure to hear Andrew Cuomo create his own facts at every debate stage.
Yeah.
We just had a former governor say in his own words that the city has been getting screwed by the state. Who was leading the state? It was you.
Governor Hochul.
You were leading the state for
Governor
10 years,
Hochul.
screwing the city.
No.
You cut
You
homelessness
as a
funding.
legislator.
You cut funding for the MTA.
You as a legislator.
You did all of these things, my
That's
friend.
the past 4 years. It's the past 4 years.
Okay, guys, I didn't want to have to do this, but you understand how this works. You can't talk over each other. Nothing works if you do that. I believe we've heard your response. I wanted to give you a quick word, and then we're going to move on.
I heard the both of them again fighting like kids in the schoolyard. Zoran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin, and Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City.
Okay. Go ahead, Katie.
We're going to move now to public safety. And there was some breaking news from the New York Times that you, Mr. Mamdani, would ask Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch to stay on as police commissioner if you are indeed mayor. I wanted to confirm if that was true. And for Mr. Cuomo and Mr. Sliwa, would you ask the current police commissioner to stay on if you were elected? So, Mr. Mamdani, we'll start with you.
Yes, I can confirm that reporting. My administration will be relentless in its pursuit of safety and affordability for every New Yorker. And the delivery of that will require us to put together a team of the best best and the brightest. Eric Adams stacked the upper echelons of the NYPD with corruption and incompetence. Commissioner Tisch took on a broken status quo, started to deliver accountability, rooting out corruption and reducing crime across the 5 boroughs. I've said time and again that my litmus test for that position will be excellence, and the alignment will be of that position. And I am confident that under a Mamdani administration, we would continue to deliver on that same mission and do so while creating the Department of Community Safety to ensure that mental health experts were the ones responding to the mental health crisis. Because safety and justice is at the cornerstone of our pursuit of public safety, and in doing so, we will also be able to deliver our agenda for affordability.
Thank you. And very briefly, quickly, Mr. Sliwa and Mr. Cuomo, would you ask Commissioner Tisch to stay on if you are elected mayor?
Yes, I would, for stability. But then again, I don't think she would serve with either Cuomo or Zoran, because she has railed against no cash bail. Cuomo, the architect of no cash bail; Zoran, the apprentice of no cash bail. That's why criminals are running in the street.
And Mr. Cuomo, would you ask her to stay on?
I would ask her to stay on. I don't believe Zoran when he says he would ask her to stay on. The DSA's position, his position has been to defund, disband the police. She wouldn't take that. His current position, today's position, was freeze the budget. That would cause a reduction in police. She has called for more police. I've called for more police. Mayor Adams has called for more police. So their philosophies are totally incongruous. DSA calls for eliminating misdemeanors. He wants to decriminalize prostitution. I don't think she would support any of that.
Well, we can't speak for her. She's not here. But I will ask the public safety question. And we'll start with you, Mr. Sliwa. The issues of crime and disorder on the streets. The NYPD says the crime is going down in all major categories, most major categories. But to New Yorkers, they're still concerned with disorder and their own unique perception of crime. Do you think addressing quality of life concerns helps prevent more serious crimes? And how would you deploy the city's police force to deal with those serious violent crimes and also quality of life offenses like disorderly conduct and retail theft? Mr. Sliwa.
First off, I've been in all 350 neighborhoods. I'm the only candidate that's on the subway each and every day. I've yet to hear from one New Yorker who said they feel safer either in the subways or the streets. And Eric Adams constantly heckling at us like it's the perception. No, it's the reality of crime. We need 7,000 police officers. We are badly understaffed. We need to get police officers in the subways actually patrolling the moving cars where people are most threatened and most frightened. And we need to bring back the homeless outreach unit that was disbanded when de Blasio took $1 billion out of the budget. These were men and women police officers who already had with them medical nurses and healthcare practitioners, but it was de Blasio who abolished it, and they've been talking about bringing something back ever since, but they never do it. Because I'm out there in the subways every day and I never see it. And when I'm mayor, it gets done on day one. The homeless outreach unit is put back into the NYPD.
Thank you. Mr. Mamdani.
You know, when I hear from New Yorkers of where they feel least safe, they will often tell me the subway system. And when they explain those moments to me, what they are often explaining is a mental health crisis in our city and a crisis of homelessness that has only continued to grow. And that is why, at the heart of our public safety agenda, is a groundbreaking proposal to not only reduce crime, but address these very moments of unease for New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs by creating a Department of Community Safety that will be focused on the mental health crisis, focused on homelessness, and will ensure that police officers can focus on serious crimes. Because in 2020, the response time for those officers was less than 11 minutes. Today, it's closer to 16 minutes. And that's because every year, they are now responding to 200,000 mental health calls, when those are calls that could by and large be taken by experts trained on responding to that very crisis.
Thank you. Mr. Cuomo.
Yeah. The answer is always a new government agency. It's manage the system, manage the public safety system. We know how to do this. Mayor David Dinkins did it when we had a real crime problem. Hire more police officers. Of course, you have to deal with the mentally ill. Of course, that requires mental health specialists. with police, because the situation can be dangerous, but hire the 5,000 more cops because they're all quitting, because they're getting worked too hard. You're going to have to raise the starting salary because nobody wants to be a cop today, the way they're treated. Put 1,500 in the subways. Forget this Zoran idea of not prosecuting misdemeanors. Prosecute misdemeanors. Those are quality of life crimes. And that's very important. Yes, the subways are scary, but it's scary in their neighborhood too. Those quality of life crimes also have to be addressed.
Mr. Mulroney.
No matter how many times Andrew Cuomo describes it as my idea or my policy, I have never once stated that we were not going to prosecute misdemeanors. And that is what you see from the former governor, is someone who spends more time talking about the platforms of other organizations and other individuals than the one that I've actually put forward or the one that he is supposed to be running on.
Now we'll hear from Brian for another question.
And excuse me 1 second. Can I just respond to that accusation?
Whether it's misdemeanors or felonies, no cash bail releases him back into the streets, and both of you afford no cash bail.
I want to move on. You'll get your opportunities, I think, because I want to bring up a particular crime concern, and that is violence among younger New Yorkers, specifically teenagers. My question is, what is your stance on the statewide Raise the Age law, which increased the age of adult criminal responsibility from 16 years old to 18 for most crimes? Police Commissioner Tisch says, quote, "The mentality on the street is that nothing happens to those under 18 who possess a gun." So would you support modifying Raise the Age in any way? And Mr. Mamdani, since you just announced that you would invite Commissioner Tisch to stay on, would you go along with her on this?
I would not support changes to the state's legislation, and I would not support them because the major issue with the implementation of that legislation has been the fact that there is hundreds of millions of dollars that was supposed to be delivered alongside that law that is still languishing in Albany. And I am excited to be the next mayor of the city to finally fight for the money that this city is owed to ensure that we deliver it to our young people across the 5 boroughs.
Mr. Cuomo.
What I was referring to before is Zoran is a member of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. They have a charter. He gives them 3% of his salary. He has said multiple times, I'm a DSA member, I pledge allegiance. They say abolish jails, defund police, don't enforce misdemeanors. Go to my website, andrewcuomo.com. It's right on the front page. Now, is he lying to the DSA? Is he lying to New York? Is he lying to everybody? Who knows? On the Raise the Age, I passed the law. I support the law. We were one of only 2 states that put 16 and 17-year-olds in adult prisons. It was inhumane. It was cruel and unusual, and I'm proud of that law. It's administered by local governments. Some are doing it better than others. If Zoran thought that there was money locked up in Albany, maybe he should have gone to Albany and proposed a bill to release it.
Support keeping the law. Mr. Sliwa.
Once again, the architect of Raise the Age, Governor Cuomo, the apprentice to him, Zoran. It's personal for me. My oldest son, Anthony, last October was the victim of a vicious gang assault that could have killed him. And what happened to these juveniles? Cut free, because they went to family court, not criminal court. So how can both of you look at me? I almost lost my oldest son to gang violence, and the perpetrators went to family court and got a little pat on the wrist and was sent home to do it again and again. No. We need to start charging juveniles who commit violent crime in criminal court, and I'll appoint criminal court judges who follow the law and don't just release them because of no cash bail.
Clear difference between you on that. Ms. Errol, you pick it up.
Okay, candidates, I've got individual questions for you, and we're going to try and pick up the pace a little bit here. I'd like you to really just explain kind of where you're coming from. Mr. Mamdani, you've called for reorganizing the NYPD to create this Department of Community Safety that, among other things, would handle calls involving people in mental health distress. Your opponents have disparaged this as sending social workers rather than cops into dangerous situations like domestic violence disputes. Explain really what you have in mind, and please include any evidence that this approach would work.
Absolutely. What my opponents are clinging to is the past, because that's all that they know. What I am proposing is something that will address the needs of New Yorkers in the present. We speak and hear from New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs who outline how the mental health crisis is one of the major challenges in this city. And yet what we have in our city is asking those same police officers who are being asked to respond to shootings, respond to murders, to also respond to these calls. I trust the dispatchers who would be receiving these calls to make the determination as to whether there was any indication of violence. If there is no indication of a threat of violence, then we would set the mental health experts and providers to respond to those same incidents. The reason I believe in the efficacy of this approach is because of the fact that it has been delivered elsewhere in the country. So no matter how often you hear those on this stage tell you that something cannot be done, know that there are others in this same country who have seen it, and it is time for that same policy to come to New York City.
Okay, Mr. Sliwa and Mr. Cuomo, I have a similar question for both of you. The department currently fields about 33,000 officers, down from 37,000 in 2018. Public safety budget approaching $10 billion. Mr. Sliwa, you want to hire 7,000 more cops. Mr. Cuomo says 5,000 more cops. Each of you make the case for why you think that's necessary, especially given the fact that for much of New York City, crime declines over the last 20 years happened while the size of the force was also declining and not rising.
Errol, I have to revisit the last debate for a second when Zoran was basing this policy on what they do in Eugene, Oregon. You've never been to Eugene, Oregon. I have. Are you out of your mind? And then Columbus, Ohio. This is New York City, a major metropolitan area with thousands of 911 calls, domestic abuse, emotionally disturbed persons, and you want to have social workers go out there and risk their life, and by the way, they're not going to get the results that a trained professional police officer can get. That's why we so desperately need 7,000 new cops. We'll use the Boston model, which is pay now in lieu of taxes. They do it at Harvard University and the other university. We'll raise $1 billion, get them vetted, trained, and out into the streets so they can be seen in all the neighborhoods, and most importantly, do the job they were sworn to do. And I will make sure that their insurance, the qualified immunity that was stripped from them, the only civil servants who are not protected by the taxpayer, is returned so that they can freely go out and do what they were trained to do, is to protect all of the people of New York City.
Okay, Mr. Cuomo.
There is nothing new here. We've had mentally ill, homeless people going back to the Billy Boggs case, right, under the Ed Koch administration. I ran homeless services not just for David Dinkins, but also for President Clinton. I've worked in every state, all the large cities, on all homeless programs. I've spent dozens of nights out trying to bring mentally ill people in. It can be done with mental health workers and police workers. You cannot tell from a phone call if a person is going to be dangerous. And I have seen personally many times a person who seemed very calm and sedate explode into rage. Why? Because that's sometimes a symptom of mental illness. So there's nothing new here. It just has to be done and managed. Yes, you need more police. You need more police, first of all, Errol, because they're quitting, because there are not enough to staff the force, and they're working overtime and weekends, and their family life is destroyed. So you have the highest attrition rate in modern history. You have to hire 5,000 just to slow down the attrition.
Okay, thank you, candidate.
40,000 beds for mental health in the state hospital system. By the time you fled fearing impeachment, you cut the budget down to 4,000 beds. Shame on you for putting those emotionally disturbed persons in the street.
You don't know what you're doing. Well, there's one bet I'm going to say for you, but no one is saying to go back to Willowbrook. That's when there were 40,000 people in mental institutions. Yeah. We left that 40 years ago when we went to community-based housing.
We're going to stay in this century, guys. Yeah. The next, we're going to do our lightning round where each candidate will answer our questions with a brief response, usually yes or no. I'm going to do the first couple. Candidates, if you had the power power, would you keep, kill, or modify the congestion pricing program? Just say one of those words. Keep, kill, or modify. Mr.
One
Sliwa.
and done, dead.
Mr. Mamdani.
Keep.
Keep.
Okay. Would you expand, decrease, or keep the same number of so-called safe injection sites for drug users in the city? Mr. Mamdani.
Can you say the options again?
Expand, decrease, or keep the same?
Keep the same.
Mr. Cuomo.
Keep.
Close them down.
Okay. The last two mayors proposed allocating 1% of the city budget for parks. Will you make the same pledge here tonight, Mr. Sliwa?
Add another 2%. Keep your hands off the parks, you greedy developers.
1%.
Mr. Cuomo. 1%. Okay.
2%.
Okay.
Another lightning round question. The city recently enacted a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit for e-bikes. And of course, there are the other motorized two-wheelers that also frequently ignore red lights and other traffic laws. If you were mayor, would you direct the NYPD to ramp up speeding tickets and other moving violations on the motorized two-wheelers, Mr. Cuomo?
Yes. Look, this is a dangerous situation for many people.
Mr. Mamdani, yes or no?
I would actually build on the city council's progress in holding the apps accountable like DoorDash and Grubhub to ensure that there weren't incentives for breaking those street traffic laws.
So you would not increase ticketing the riders?
I do not think the police should be the ones dealing with the failures of these app companies.
Mr. Sliwa.
License them, register them, and yes, do enforcement on them.
All right. There is a ballot question to align mayoral election years with presidential election years in the future. Do you support this, Mr. Sliwa?
Absolutely not. All the attention would go to the presidential election, not to the mayoral election and all the down-ballot elections, all of our city council people.
That's a no, Mr. Mamdani.
I haven't yet taken a position on any of the ballot referendums.
Oh, shocker.
Again?
It's the same answer as
Again and again and again. Yes.
Katie.
Thank you so much. First question, do you support having a casino in the 5 boroughs, like it's a full casino, and do you have a favorite among the 3 current contenders? Mr. Sliwa.
No, only if the community wants it.
Mr. Mamdani.
I'm personally skeptical of casinos, but voters did choose to bring them to New York City, and unlike Andrew Cuomo and Donald Trump, I don't view the law as just a suggestion.
Do you have a favorite of the 3?
No, I don't have favorites of casinos.
Mr. Cuomo.
I do not. I have not reviewed the proposals. I was not in. I did not vote.
It's not so hard to say.
I did. Let me just so you understand some facts. I did not vote to bring the casinos to New York City. I did casinos in upstate New York as economic development measures. I had no part of these 3 casinos, how they were done. I think it's highly problematic, and I think there's going to be a lot more to come.
If this was, if this was a ranked choice,
You and Zoran can't answer a straight question.
If there was a ranked choice election, how would you vote, Mr. Mamdani?
If there was a ranked choice election?
In this, you'd have to rank these.
Myself number 1 and Curtis number 2.
Mr. Sliwa.
Oh, please don't be glazing me here, Zoran. Are you kidding?
Mr. Sliwa, do you want to have
I support ranked choice voting, but I'd only vote for myself.
Mr. Cuomo?
I love that Zoran and Curtis ticket idea. I don't know. I'm just enamored with it. I would just rank myself.
Would any of you accept Mayor Adams' endorsement? Mr. Mamdani?
No.
Mr. Cuomo?
Yes, I would.
Mr. Sliwa?
Absolutely not. Put that crook in jail where he belongs.
And final, a fun one.
Be careful. Be careful.
What is your favorite live music venue in New York City, Mr. Sliwa?
Oh, chain smokers. EDM.
Under the K Bridge, I'm presuming.
That's right, the Kosciuszko Bridge.
Mr. Mamdani?
Forest Hill Stadium.
Mr. Cuomo?
Under the Kosciuszko Bridge.
Have you seen a show under the K Bridge? Who'd you see?
No, I picked up my daughters at a show there. That's as close as I got.
Candidates, it's time for the cross-examination round. That's where each candidate gets a chance to ask one question of one rival. The order was selected at random. We're going to begin with Curtis Sliwa.
Zoran, you talk about free, free, free. But we know that somebody's got to pay for it, and that's you, the taxpayers. And that's going to lead to bankruptcy. The only reason that Zoran is on the stage is because of the failed Governor Cuomo. who was rejected by the Democrats in the primary and rejected by 13 women who charged you with sexual harassment. Do you ever know that no means no? You know what no means?
Your question is to Mr. Mamdani? Who was your question
to? We can bifurcate it, right?
No. You can't. Who was your question
to? It's to Cuomo.
Okay. Your response, Mr. Cuomo.
I'm not sure what the man said, but the situation, my legal situation, as we discussed before, was fully litigated. I was dropped from the cases. If anyone has a legal situation to talk about, I think it's Mr. Sliwa, who runs the Guardian Angels, and apparently as a charitable donation, but never filed any tax returns for the Guardian Angels, and has been accepting charitable donations, which is just a crime and tax fraud. So I think that's the person who I was explaining to do.
Okay. Your turn to ask a question, Mr. Cuomo.
To Zoran, I believe, as we've stated, that you have been a divisive force in New York, and I believe that's toxic energy for New York. It's with the Jewish community, it's with the Italian-American community when you give the Columbus statue the finger. It's with the Sunni Muslims when you say decriminalize prostitution, which is haram. It's the Hindus. But then you take a picture with Rebecca Kadaga, Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda. You take a picture with your father, you're smiling, he's smiling. She's known as Rebecca Gay Killer Kadaga.
Question.
You're a citizen of Uganda. You took the picture, you said you didn't know who she was, it turns out you did. How do you not renounce your citizenship or demand BDS against Uganda for imprisoning people who are gay just by their sexual orientation? Isn't that a basic violation of human rights?
I think he gets the question.
My politics is consistent, and my politics is built on a belief in human rights for all people. And that extends to queer and trans New Yorkers, and it extends to queer and trans Ugandans. And had I known that the first deputy minister was the architect of that legislation, I would not have taken that photo. And yet I also know that this constant attempt to smear and slander me is an attempt to also distract from the fact that, unlike myself, you do not actually have a platform or a set of policies to protect those same New Yorkers here. All you have are the insults that you have lobbed at every single opportunity you have.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's it. Cross-examination is just a question and answer. Your turn to ask a question.
Mr. Cuomo, in 2021, 13 different women who worked in your administration credibly accused you of sexual harassment. Since then, you have spent more than $20 million in taxpayer funds to defend yourself, all while describing these allegations as entirely political. You have even gone so far as to legally go after these women. One of those women, Charlotte Bennett, is here in the audience this evening. You sought to access her private gynecological records. She cannot speak up for herself because you lodged a defamation case against her. I, however, can speak. What do you say to the 13 women that you sexually harassed?
If you want to be in government, then you have to be serious and mature. There were allegations of sexual harassment. They were then went to 5 district attorneys, fully litigated for 4 years. The cases were dropped, right? You know that as a fact. So everything you just said was a misstatement, which we're accustomed to from you.
Everything that I stated was a misstatement?
Yes, because the cases were dropped. That's what happened. And my question to you, you still didn't answer, why won't you say BDS against Uganda for saying gays should be imprisoned for being gay?
Okay.
You have no problem with BDS against Israel. but no BDS for Uganda.
This is just one question, one answer. We all heard it. Thank you very much, candidates. Brian.
Our next topic is education. The next mayor will oversee the largest school system in the United States, as you know, with roughly 900,000 students, thousands of schools, and billions of dollars in budget. We have an education question for each of you. Mr. Mamdani, you said you would give up mayoral control of schools and share decision-making with various stakeholders. But in the last debate, you said you're still for mayoral accountability for educational outcomes. This has confused some people about how you can give up final authority but still hold yourself accountable. Can you try to clarify that?
I remain opposed to mayoral control, and I also believe that the mayor is accountable for that which happens in this city. I will not shirk that accountability, even when we are putting together a system that has greater involvement for parents, for educators, for students. Look, 1 in 300 Americans is a student in the New York City public school system. This is a system where we are failing to deliver excellence to students, to teachers, to parents, and it is time to have a mayor who understands not only the crisis in front of us, but the fact that we have to change our ways if we want to change our results. And that is what we are running on, a plan for the future, not to simply relitigate the past.
Mr. Sliwa, you recently proposed reducing the education budget by $10 billion, or about 25%, to help pay for tax cuts. But your website includes things like, quote, hire more therapists, expand services for students with learning differences, build new vocational high schools, restore arts programs, expand athletic programs, and increase teacher pay to attract and retain top talent. Those are all exact quotes from your website. How do you defund the education department by 25% to cut taxes, add in the Trump administration's various cuts, and do all those expansions at the same time?
Well, let me tell you, you have a bureaucracy at the Tweed Courthouse. Perfect place to house the Department of Education because of the corruption in the top ranks. You have 13 deputy chancellors. You have about 50 department heads. Nobody at the school level ever deals with them. $41,000 we pay per student, and teachers still have to reach into their pockets to pay for basic supplies. You cut at the top, contracts that have been negotiated that have not been overseen. You will save millions and millions of dollars. And yes, you open up the schools as it was when I went to public school, after school center, night center, weekend center, not just sports, but culture, plays, musicals. People used to be able to take instruments home when they were in band and orchestra. That attracted children. 1/3 of our children don't even come to school each day, and we need more vocational training like we had when I was growing up. That's been depleted, and more charter schools. We need to raise the cap and have more charter schools for the children who have been waiting to get in for years.
And Katie has an education question for Mr. Cuomo.
Thanks, Brian. Mr. Cuomo, there's currently a state law to reduce class sizes in the city. You recently described the law as, quote, reckless, and proposed that popular schools be exempted from this law. You also want to start closing low-performing schools, one of the most controversial policies of Mayor Bloomberg. Would you defy the class size law, and if you close existing schools rather than work to improve them, what specifically helps the kids learn more and where?
Yeah, the common denominator on all these things is, the question is, what is your plan to change things, and what is your ability and experience to do it? These are management challenges, and I have managed large bureaucracies. The Department of Education, we lost 1 million students. What's happening is young families have to make a decision when their child has to go to school. They're deciding to go to the suburbs, go to Jersey. They're not going to sacrifice their kid. So it is a terrible problem for the entire city, the shrinking public school system. I would double the gifted and talented programs, double the number of specialized high schools, keep the SAT, and keep mayoral control. It is wholly inconsistent to say, I think it's a top priority, but I want to give up mayoral control, but I want to be a mayor who runs grocery stores. Forget the grocery stores. Run the Department of Education. It was the most single instrumental reform. Mayor Bloomberg was right. The mayor in Boston and Chicago don't give up mayoral control.
Would you defy the law, the class size law?
The problem with the class size law, it's a nice idea. The state didn't send the money. The state has not been doing its fair share for the city. If you have a nice idea, that's nice. Send the money.
And just a fact check, I don't think we lost 1 million students. We have just about under 1 million students in the DOE system. But just a quick show of hands.
I'm sorry, yes.
And just a show of hands, no talking. Who is in favor of the cell phone ban in schools? Raise your hands. Everyone has raised their hands. They all are in favor of the cell phone ban. Thank you.
Okay. Candidates, I want to talk about Rikers Island. Under city law, the jail complex on Rikers is supposed to close in 2027. That's something that the next mayor is going to have to navigate. The population, however, has only gone up. It's surpassing 7,000 detainees, and a judge this year put Rikers on a path toward federal receivership. So here's the question. As mayor, will you commit to the closure of Rikers Island as required? And if not, what is your alternative plan? We'll start with you, Mr. Sliwa.
Number one, the architect for the closing of Rikers Island is on this stage. That's former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He was the first, and his apprentice is Orhan Mandabi. No, you keep Rikers Island open. There are 7 functioning buildings, 3 others that need to be rehabbed. You can move those who have mental health issues and give them the treatment they need as long as they're detained on Rikers Island. Some people do a year of time if they're given that in the courts rather than be shipped upstate. So there are a variety of inmates. We have allocated $8 billion for 4 community jails. The price tag is now up to $16 billion and will only house 4,000 of the 7,000. Guess what? We keep the inmates on Rikers Island, and we turn those 4 units in the neighborhoods into affordable housing that we've all been clamoring for.
What about the law that requires the closing?
Oh, you go into court, you fight. You fight for the taxpayers, and you fight to keep inmates on Rikers Island so that we don't just have to lock up toothpaste in New York City, but we lock up inmates.
Mr. Cuomo.
Zoran has said he'd honor the law closing Rikers in 2027. You can't. You can't. Unless you intend to release all the people on Rikers Island, which is the Democratic Socialist policy. The county jails are not going to be built. It was a mistake. The whole plan was a mistake. They are years late, billions over budget. I would say scrap the county jails, build new jails on Rikers Island, provide ferry and bus transportation for people from the other boroughs to visit on Rikers Island, and then use the existing 4 sites for commercial residential. But you cannot close Rikers on 2027 because there's no place to put the people unless you're going to release 7,000 people.
Well, you're familiar with the idea that a law is passed, it's supposed to be followed, even if it's difficult, even if the timeline is screwed up, even if the money's not there.
Yeah, so then, which is Zoran's position, then you're saying release the 7,000 people. And I'm saying I'm not going to release 7,000 criminals into New York City.
Mr. Mondani.
There is no one on this stage that is saying that. Yet Andrew Cuomo will repeat it again and again. What I have said time and again, I'll repeat it again, is that yes, we have to close Rikers Island. Rikers Island is a stain on the history of this city. And that this current administration has made it nearly impossible to do so by the stipulated timeline. So what I will do is everything in my power to try and meet that deadline, knowing that Eric Adams has made it so difficult because he's had no interest in actually following through on it. And as much as you will hear about experience and running a government, what Andrew Cuomo doesn't seem to understand is the city has already entered into contracts for these borough-based jails, and to end those contracts would be to incur massive fiscal penalties, but that's not something that he seems to care about, even as he speaks about the fiscal stewardship of this city.
If I may, You want to talk to me about running government or managing projects? I built the 2nd Avenue subway. I built the Mayoral Cuomo Bridge, the largest infrastructure project in the United States of America, $5 billion, on time, on budget. 2nd Avenue subway, Moynihan train hall. Of course there's costs incurred. The question is going to be, how much more does it cost to finish the jail, and are you better off cutting your losses? That's the question in the discussion, and you sit down with the contractor and you negotiate. But your position of, I'm going to close it on 2027, the question is yes or no. Do you close it in 2027? You still haven't answered.
You will hear from Andrew Cuomo about his experience as if the issue is that we don't know about it. The issue is that we have all experienced your experience. The issue is that we experienced you taking a $5 million book deal while you sent seniors to their deaths in nursing homes. The issue is that we experienced you cutting funding for the MTA to send money to upstate ski resorts. The issue is that we saw you give $959 million in tax breaks to Elon Musk. The issue is your experience.
No, the only thing, the issue is you have no experience. You've accomplished nothing. You haven't proposed a bill on anything, and you still haven't said if you'll close Rikers in 2027.
Stop. I got the answer to the questions I was asking. Thanks very much. Let's move on.
My next question is about another law that's already on the books. The city has a climate law, Local Law 97, that will require a large percentage of the buildings in the city to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030 or face financial penalties. As you know, some co-ops, condos, and landlords are afraid of crushing expenses, but buildings account for 70% of the city's climate pollution emissions, so reduction would need to include that sector. You all have taken different positions on this. I want our viewers and listeners to hear each of you, starting with Mr. Cuomo in this case. Would you abide by and make others abide by Local Law 97 as it stands?
As it stands, you're going to have to be flexible in the application. What's going to happen now is many companies will just pay the fine because it's cheaper than actually following the rules. And that's the last thing you want. That accomplishes nothing, right? It's just another tax, in essence, on these units. So there's going to have to be flexibility. It's the right intent, it's the right goal, but how you implement it has to deal with reality and the costs. Again, otherwise, I can tell you, I've had this conversation with many of them. They're not even going to try. They're just going to pay the fine.
What kind of flexibility, if you could be
It's going to be timing, and what do we mean, and can it be phased in?
Mr. Mamdani.
The climate crisis is one of the most pressing crises facing this city, and we deserve to take it on with the urgency it requires. It is right now easier to pay the fine than to actually comply with this legislation. We have to ensure that we make it easier for condo and co-op owners to follow these laws, and we do that by eliminating the application fees for J51, by extending that tax credit, by also creating a one-stop shop in New York City government that procures at a large scale heat pumps and the very kind of infrastructure needed to comply. We've seen this happen before with clean energy work that's been done in Woodside houses. It's time to bring that kind of work right here so that we can ensure full compliance with Local Law 97.
I read that you're proposing the city buy those heat pumps and other tech in bulk and give them to landlords and other buildings for free. Is that accurate?
No, it's to actually ensure that they can afford the cost of these things by purchasing using an economy of scale.
Thank you. Mr. Sliwa.
I'm the only one on this stage totally opposed to Local 97. 100,000 condo and co-op owners. Their maintenance fees will go up 30%. They won't have enough reserve fees. You're going to see massive flight from the co-ops and condos. Now, they want to electrify everything. Well, there's a man on the stage who took Indian Point offline. That was 25% of our electrical output. We haven't been able to meet the need since. And as a result, they're now starting to build, because of the city of yes that I'm opposed, these lithium-ion battery warehouses. Where? Staten Island 38, Brooklyn 12. 8 in Queens, 4 in the Bronx, and none in Manhattan? Oh, no. They're going to electrify, and they don't have the electrical output. So I say no to Local 97. And when I'm mayor, I tell all my commissioners, throw a monkey wrench into the process. We slow it down because we want these condo owners and co-op owners to stay.
Mr. Cuomo, you were name-checked on Indian Point?
I think I was. Indian Point was a danger. It was the nuclear power plant most closely located to the densest population. There was no nuclear plant on the globe that close to a city. There were 20 million people in what was called the kill zone. Before I became Attorney General, there had been a number of lawsuits to stop it. What we did is we brought cables down from upstate New York down the Hudson River. We have nuclear upstate. We're in rural areas to bring that nuclear power down the cables, and then on that basis substitute for Indian Point's power.
Yes or no?
Electricity rates are too high to pay because of you, Andrew Cuomo.
Yes or no? Would any of you support new nuclear power plants to help bring down the rising cost of utilities in New York State? Just yes or no, Mr. Sliwa?
Upstate, they're already starting, yes.
Mr. Mondani?
I think it's something worth exploring.
Mr. Cuomo?
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Katie?
We're going to move on now to the economy. Ms. Donnie, you're proposing to raise the city's minimum wage to $30 an hour by 2030. How would you get the state legislature to go along with your plan? And do you think it's realistic to feel that a small business owner would have to pay every employee this amount, especially when the city currently doesn't mandate that figure for its own public employees? And I have separate questions for Mr. Sliwa and Mr. Cuomo.
So this would be something where the city would have to start doing so as well, because any law that we want New Yorkers to follow, the city should be following it itself. And the reason that we put forward $30 by 2030 is that that's the minimum that a New Yorker needs to be paid to be able to afford to live in this city. And what we are looking at right now is the possibility of the place that we know and love becoming a museum of where working class people used to be able to live. Our proposal that we've put forward would be phased in over a longer period of time for small business owners to ensure that they could deal with this. And it's also one that we are confident we would be able to accomplish because of the fact that we are seeing from New Yorkers time and time again, the absence of it is pushing them to live in Jersey City, to live in Pennsylvania, to live in Connecticut, because they can't afford to live in New York City.
Thank you. And for Mr. Sliwa and Mr. Cuomo, if you're not in favor of a $30 minimum wage, what are your plans to raise the salaries of workers in New York City? We'll start with you, Mr. Sliwa.
First off, Zoran Mandami deals with fantasy, not reality. Look at all the Uber drivers. Look at all the taxi drivers, the Lyft drivers. They will now have driverless cars. That's what they're pushing. AI that's going to be wiping out so many jobs, especially for young men and women who went to school, got their 4-year degree, and they're making $155,000, and then they get wiped out. You know what the corporate sector is going to do. They're going to bring in robotics. Zoran, stop dealing with fantasy and start dealing with reality. You're pushing businesses out because you want to tax them. I'm the only one here who wants to cut the corporate taxes, the income tax, the property tax we can cut in order to keep business here. But if you raise the minimum wage too high, they're going to end up going in a different direction, and they're not going to hire workers. It's going to be robots and driverless cars and AI, and I'm opposed to that.
Thank you. Mr. Cuomo.
Yeah, I half agree with Curtis. There is, Zoran does have socialist theory colliding with practical reality. I went through this. We raised the minimum wage to the highest in the United States of America. New York set the bar. We set it at $15. Every other state said, that's crazy when we did it. People in the state said that was crazy when we did it. But it was calibrated, it was doable. We phased it in different parts of the state. We phased it in with small businesses. We gave them assistance. Because if you raise it too high, and I believe 30 is too high, I would raise it to 20. If you raise it to too high, you do two things. People lose their jobs. You bankrupt the businesses. You're talking about basically doubling payroll. And you can have a negative effect where literally businesses close and people lose their jobs. And overall, again, it's another tax on corporations, another reason to leave New York, another reason to pack up the family and get on I-95 and go to South Carolina and Florida and Texas.
All right. Candidates, we are coming down the home stretch. I want to alert our media partners, especially we're going to go over by 5 minutes, and we're going to have Brian lead a conversation about transit.
Right, and we're going to have to do this very briefly to each of you because you each have transit things to answer to. Mr. Cuomo, you say the city should take partial control of New York City transit away from the MTA, which is mostly controlled by the state. Would the city then have to foot more of the bill? And if this is a good idea, why didn't you propose it as governor?
The capital, first of all, New York City owns the New York City Transit Authority, not the MTA. It leases the trains and subways to the MTA. And then the question is the division of responsibility. New York City does the safety along with the MTA. The problem the MTA is having is the capital construction projects. It has been an ongoing problem. I came in, I took over Moynihan and finished it. I came in and took over 2nd Avenue subway, the L train tunnel. The capital construction projects are way overdue.
Would it fall more on the city to pay?
I would say no. There is a budget set. My only point is the MTA, which is a labyrinth bureaucracy set up by Rockefeller, which should have never been done in the first place. It's an overwhelming task for the greatest managers, and I hired both of them. But let the city manage the capital construction from the MTA budget.
Mr. Mamdani, make your case briefly for your proposal for free buses for everybody, even those who can afford to pay.
You know, first I'll just say that one of the most celebrated leaders of the New York City Transit was Andy Byford, who had such a terrible experience working under Andrew Cuomo that he would rather work under Donald Trump right now. The proposal that we have put forward addresses the fact that today, in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 1 in 5 New Yorkers cannot afford the bus fare. It would cost $700 million a year to make the slowest buses in the country fast and free. And by doing so, we would generate more than double in economic revenue for New Yorkers across the city. It would be something that would reduce assaults on bus drivers, it would increase ridership on those buses, and it would actually have environmental impacts, as fewer New Yorkers would drive their own car or take a taxi and would instead get on the bus. And I know all of this because I delivered it as a state assembly member who won the first free buses in New York City's history.
And Mr. Sliwa, your website, according to my reading, has a section on transit safety, but nothing on transit service. Do you have any core proposals for improving it?
Oh, sure. First off, Zoran, I get a good belly laugh.
Zoran, bro.
Oh, all right. I'll keep practicing.
I got you.
I get a good belly laugh every time I hear you say free fare in the subways. Half the people don't pay anyway. How about fair enforcement? I'm the only one who says we have all kinds of fare programs for the indigent and the poor. But if you don't pay your fare, there needs to be enforcement. And by the way, I've taken the subway almost every day of my life since I was 5. The worst time was the summer of 2017, the summer of hell, Andrew Cuomo,
right,
when
Curtis.
you were running the subway system as the head of the MTA. I don't trust you with anything to do with mass transit.
How would you make it better?
Oh, very simply. Everybody pays their fare, enforcement, more cops in the subway system. And by the way, we can get more people to voluntarily actually sponsor their subway system stations, clean it up, and beautify them, and add some life so the community has input into the subway that they have to go through the sleaze and slime all the time.
All right, candidates, we've got just a couple of minutes. Let's have another quick lightning round where each candidate will answer my questions with a quick response, usually yes or no. Name one person you'd like to see run for president in 2028, Mr. Sliwa.
Wow, in 2028. Man, I'm dealing right now with 2025.
Mr. Mamdani.
My only focus is on November.
Mr. Cuomo.
I haven't thought it through.
Okay. We have a city of hundreds of languages and cultures. Can you greet New Yorkers in a language other than your own? Mr. Cuomo.
Ciao. Buenos dias.
Ni hao,我的朋友.
Okay.
Buona fortuna per 100 anni.
Okay. Have you decided on a school's chancellor, Mr. Sliwa?
Yes, I would ask Bob Holden, who's taught 40 years. He leads Democrats for Sliwa.
Okay. Mr. Mamdani.
No, I haven't decided on a chancellor yet.
No.
Okay. Should people be arrested for the solicitation of sex, Mr. Sliwa?
No, the Johns, yes, the pimps, the madams, and the absentee landlords.
Okay. Mr. Mamdani.
No.
Mr. Cuomo.
Zoran's decriminalization for prostitutes, Johns, and pimps would be a disaster on the quality of life in New York City.
They should be arrested, you say? Should people be arrested for soliciting sex?
It is a criminal offense. I would keep it as it is.
Okay. Last question. Can you name one thing that New York got right during the COVID crisis? Mr. Sliwa.
New York got right. Oh, wow. He didn't get anything right during the COVID crisis. No.
Mr. Mamdani.
It only took me 15 minutes to get my vaccine shot when I went for that, and that was an efficient experience.
Mr. Cuomo.
Thank you for the compliment.
That was a city-run vaccine.
All right,
No,
gentlemen.
it wasn't.
Thanks so much, gentlemen. That is going to do
You still
it
have to learn, son.
for this debate. I would like to thank the candidates and our partners and all of you at home. If you missed any part of this debate, you can watch it in its entirety at ny1.com and the Spectrum News YouTube channel. Early voting is set to begin across the 5 boroughs on Saturday, with several other races on the ballot as well, including city controller, public advocate, the 5 borough presidents and members of the city council, as well as 6 ballot initiatives. There's some district attorney races as well. Election day is November 4th. Thank you all for watching. Have a great evening.
Welcome to New York One special post-debate coverage. I'm your host, Bobby Kuza. You have just finished watching the second and final general election debate for mayor between the 3 leading contenders. I am once again joined by 2 members of our New York One political team, Courtney Gross and Ayanna Harry. And Ben Max is also here. He is the executive editor at New York Law School's Center for New York City Law and the host of the Max Politics podcast. So, Ayanna, I'm going to start with you. Let's just talk about some big picture takeaways. What were 3 of your takeaways from this debate?
The live studio audience really added a lot to the debate and brought a lot more laughter, a lot more of these lighter moments during what is, of course, a very serious debate. It was interesting to see that moment of agreement between all 3 candidates. It seemed like they disagreed on almost everything except for the cell phone ban for New York City public schools. And there was a critical moment for Zoran Mamdani where we heard from that studio audience really challenging him when he refused to say where he stood on any of the ballot proposals that New Yorkers will be voting on in just a few days. So those are just a few of my takeaways, but overall I felt that this was a very lively debate. All 3 candidates were engaged throughout the evening, and I'd be interested to hear what everyone else thought.
I overlap with you on one. Is definitely one of my big takeaways is the inability of Zoran Mamdani to answer on those ballot proposals. I mean, these are really pressing issues. The housing crisis is a huge pressing issue facing the city, and the fact that he wouldn't weigh in on that, we know it's very divisive. The city council is one way, the Adams administration is another way, but we're all voting potentially starting Saturday. So the idea that he hasn't made his mind up yet is probably not true. He just doesn't want to alienate a particular base. One of the other takeaways I had is that the Cuomo-Curtis Sliwa war continues. We were wondering whether or not there was going to be a white flag, would there be some coalition or like them coming together against Mamdani together, but that was clearly not the case. We saw them obviously attack one another time and again, Curtis going after Cuomo quite a lot. And then my third takeaway would be that the sexual harassment scandals continue to dog Andrew Cuomo. I mean, both of the cross-examination questions by both Curtis Sliwa and Zohran Mamdani were about this sexual harassment scandals. And while Andrew Cuomo has a canned response, which is inaccurate in part, saying that these lawsuits have been completely dismissed. They've been settled by the state for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and one of them does continue a civil case in federal court. So that continues to dog him.
Well, and he also says that this was looked at by 5 DAs and nothing came of it.
That is true,
Right.
yes. So
but all that means is that there wasn't enough evidence to bring
criminal charges. Yes, obviously there was an investigation by the state attorney general. She tapped 2 former federal prosecutors, or 1 federal prosecutor and then a very well-renowned human resources person to do this investigation, which they found about 11 or so women were sexually harassed by the governor at the time. And then the Justice Department later on, just a few years, I think it was even last year, honestly, that the Justice Department also found that these allegations by 13 women were credible. So there are multiple investigations, and the idea that he left office because it felt like it was the right time. I can't the exact words that he said. He left office because he was under threat of impeachment. And if he didn't leave office, he was going to be impeached by the state assembly.
Well, that's what Curtis Sliwa said. He said you didn't leave office, you fled office.
Yeah, that was
under the threat of impeachment. Ben, what were your takeaways?
Well, I won't repeat a lot of the good stuff our colleagues here already said, but zooming way out, great debate, no big race-changing moment, so that's a big takeaway, right? The dynamics of the race are probably pretty similar now to what they were coming into the debate. That's usually the case with debates, but then you never know. There could be an exception like the Joe Biden debate, or even not quite as extreme, right? So that's one. But more specifically, I would say the difference on Rikers Island is a big one. You know, that's a really interesting, telling difference among the candidates. And then also this question that keeps coming up about Zohran Mamdani and running the school system. We talked about this a little bit in the pre-debate show. This came up in the prior debate. He doesn't have a clear plan. He says he's against mayoral control, but doesn't really explain why. That seems like a big problem for someone that could very easily be running the school system in just a couple months.
Do we think that Andrew Cuomo was any more effective in these attacks against Zohran Mamdani? I mean, a lot of it was the same attacks we've heard before. He seemed a little bit more sure-footed in my reading of it tonight. And a couple of new things that I don't think came up in the debate last week. One of them, the fact that Mamdani had taken this picture with the deputy foreign minister of Uganda, who had been responsible for some of this very draconian anti-gay legislation. And Mamdani says he didn't know who she was. He wouldn't have taken the picture with her, but it seemed like he was, caught a little flat-footed on that one.
Well, he shouldn't have been, because Andrew Cuomo, while he didn't bring it up on the last debate, he's held press conferences just to call out Zohran Mamdani for taking this photograph and, smiling with this very controversial Ugandan leader. But I did think overall, Andrew Cuomo did seem more confident on the stage this evening. And there were moments where the applause from the audience seemed to give him a bit of a boost. So I think that this was a stronger debate performance for Andrew Cuomo today compared to last week. He just seemed more relaxed, more confident, ready to go toe-to-toe with Zohran Mamdani and with Curtis Sliwa. Last week, we saw Cuomo almost exclusively focus on Mamdani. This week, he, I think, was a bit more balanced in having criticism for both candidates.
I was going to say, if it weren't for those sexual harassment moments, if it weren't for take out the cross-examination round entirely, and I would say that Andrew Cuomo probably won that debate. I agree with Ayanna that he seemed confident, and he was able to tap into parts of his record that New Yorkers might think fondly on. I mean, LaGuardia Airport, for one. The Second Avenue subway is another one. And LaGuardia Airport, was once called a third world country by the former president, Joe Biden, and now is being recognized as the best airport in the country. I mean, that's a huge thing that Andrew Cuomo can say is a massive accomplishment.
All right, we're actually going to go back out to LaGuardia Community College. We actually have our very own Errol Lewis standing by there on the debate stage. Errol, excellent job as always, keeping these guys in check. How did it feel out there from where you were sitting?
Thanks very much, Bobby. It was a lot of fun. You know, we spent a lot of time planning for this, and it went as well as we would have expected. It's nice to have a live audience here, and the audience, while enthusiastic, was not overpowering, not disruptive. And it lends a certain kind of electric charge to the proceedings. It lets you know that there's a lot at stake here, which is true. The candidates themselves were reasonably well behaved. They did not hold back. They attacked each other on everything we've heard them say over the months and weeks leading up to this debate. And so I think they felt like they were heard. We chatted briefly with them afterwards. They came over to shake hands, and none of them felt as if they'd been treated unfairly. None of them felt as if they'd been silenced. I think all of them put their best foot forward, and that's about all you can ask for in 90 minutes of a debate.
Errol, one moment that was kind of striking, we were just talking about here on set, was when you asked about the housing ballot questions. You asked Zohran Mamdani, and he just completely avoided the question. I mean, it was clear that he hasn't taken a position, does not want to publicly state a position, even though, you know, as Courtney noted, we're just a couple of days away from early voting. And then that just opened him up to sort of ridicule from his two opponents. Were you surprised by that?
I was a little surprised by that, you know, because what normally you'd hear a politician say is, I haven't looked at it enough, or I need to consult with some experts, or, you know, I have some technical problems, something, but not to act as if you just haven't made up your mind. It came across as indifferent almost. And I don't know if you could tell from watching, but the audience got involved, and there were a lot of people in the audience who just groaned, and I think some of them might even have been Mamdani supporters. That, you know, it shouldn't be asking too much. That you just like let us know what you want. It's on the same ballot, for God's sake. You're on the front side asking everybody to vote for you, and on the back side are these questions. So it's not like you can ask people to defer on this. It's going to be right in front of the voters. It's also a critical power that the next mayor is going to have. It really transfers a lot of power to the mayor. And so on the surface of it, nobody who's actually mayor should want to, you know, not hold this very important power.
Errol, what did you think of Curtis Sliwa? There's been so much attention on him, including just these last few days. There's been mounting pressure on him to drop out of the race and to throw support to Andrew Cuomo in order to block Zohran Mamdani's path to the mayoralty. But tonight, you know, as we saw in the debate last week, he really went after both of them, maybe even went after Andrew Cuomo harder than he went after Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah, Curtis Sliwa has been burning bridges today. Apparently, he had this remarkable radio conversation earlier today where he attacked the owner of the station where he's worked for many years and basically announced that he's never coming back. That's, you know, that's really throwing your cap over the wall. You know, tonight he really went after both of his opponents. And look, he announced himself and defined himself as the spokesperson for a substantial chunk of New York. And they are conservative, and they are working class, and they are Republicans or supporters of the Republican Party. And he basically does not want to abdicate his leadership of that. And he wants to be the voice for those people. And he wants that more than he wants a job in radio. I don't know how else to put it. He's very serious about it. He's got some policy proposals that track with the needs, wants, and preferences of this slice of New York. And he's got, I think he said, what, 8 campaign offices? He's raised a couple of $1 million if you count the matching funds. And he's not going anywhere.
All right, Errol, well, really outstanding job again. It was a lively and informative debate, and we may come back out to you there at LaGuardia in a little while. Thanks again, Errol. All right, we're going to come back to our panel. A little bit of news was made late this afternoon with these reports that Zohran Mamdani is planning to ask Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, to stay on in a potential Mamdani administration. He confirmed that on the debate stage and then kind of gave his explanation as to why he wants her to stay on. Doesn't mean she's going to agree or accept the offer, but that was an interesting twist.
Yeah, we've gotten a statement from the NYPD spokesperson who has said that the police commissioner would not weigh in or ever consider weighing in on electoral politics. So we do not know whether Tish would want to stay on in any kind of Mamdani administration. I mean, there's an argument to be made that perhaps if he does win and is giving her this offer, that there is something about continuity and stability, especially when there's been so much instability and corruption at One Police Plaza for so long under the Adams administration, on one hand. But on the other hand, they're very different politically. I mean, you're having someone who is an heiress, a billionaire. Mamdani has said that billionaires shouldn't exist, and that's just them personally. I mean, Tish has talked about raise the age, talked about bail reform,
discovery reform.
Yeah, there's so many different areas on the criminal justice front where they are just not on the same page at all. How would you lead the police department when your boss, the mayor, you don't see eye to eye on anything?
Yeah, Zohran Mamdani has called for example, a disbanding of the strategic response group within the NYPD. His views on policing, her views so far on policing, they really seem to not be aligned. And so I do wonder whether or not this will raise a question for some longtime Mamdani supporters, if they may begin to worry that he's moderating a little bit too far away from his core progressive values in order to get elected, and will people begin to feel abandoned? And as Courtney just mentioned, we don't know whether or not Jessica Tish would want to actually stay on as commissioner under a Mayor Mamdani, but we do know former two-time police commissioner Bill Bratton, he's very publicly encouraged her not to take the job. So it is curious to see two people who seem to be very ideologically different. How would they work? What would be in the best interest of New Yorkers? It's a bit unclear.
Mamdani risks a little bit of his base being unhappy. They're not going to abandon him in the vote, though. This is another smart move by the campaign, because now if she doesn't stay, it's on her. So that's now going to be, you know, if he wins, the ball's in her court to say, I don't want to stay on, we're too different. Okay, fine. But if he were to say he didn't want to bring her back, then he gets this whole wave of criticism from, you know, some of the more moderates, the business community, et cetera, the governor who's wanted him to keep her. So it's a politically, for at least the moment, it's a smart move, but there's all sorts of trouble down the road potentially, you know, if they were to try to make it work. There's also a situation like any appointee, they're going to have to get in a room together at some point and hash all this stuff out. She doesn't have to keep calling for changes to raise the age. She can just not talk about that if she stays on as police commissioner, right? There's a whole lot of choices you can make.
It's also, you know, a delicate act here for Mamdani, because, you know, you want to send signals to people by announcing what kind of people you're going to be installing in top positions in the administration, but you also don't want to be too presumptuous that you're going to win, right? You don't want to come out and make all these announcements before the last debate, but the way, you know, it worked out, it leaked out to the New York Times, it was announced just before the debate, and then he could address it on stage.
That was a very intentional campaign move. Yeah. Again, they've been playing a lot of chess. They've made some mistakes, and he made a couple mistakes on the debate stage, including the bad answer on the ballot questions, which we talked about. But you know, that was them getting ahead of this and giving him a talking point on public safety. Again, his two opponents are hitting him from the right on public safety, and he's able to then talk on the debate stage about keeping around the commissioner who's been rooting out corruption and decreasing crime.
I do think a decision like this, though, raises the question, is Zohran Mamdani saying he'd like to, you know, keep Jessica Tish on as police commissioner because he truly believes in her and the work she's doing? Or is he doing it because he wants to appear as if he's going to, you know, make more moderate New Yorkers happy? So I do think it raises a tough question that we don't quite have the answer for. And perhaps Mamdani could have simply just waited and not said anything. I don't think that making this announcement today makes or breaks his candidacy, but I do think it raises real questions about, you know, how will he lead? Will he lead so that he doesn't appear as weak or as inexperienced as some people may think he is, or is he leading truly based on his principles?
There is an interesting parallel if we go back to the de Blasio administration, and, you know, we were talking about this, I think, off camera about how the Sandinistas and so many people thought that Bill de Blasio was too progressive and too extreme. There's some parallels, obviously, with Mamdani, and when de Blasio won, he brought back Bill Bratton. And we know that Bratton obviously does not want Tish to take this job necessarily, but it was the same, it was a similar parallel. I don't want to say it's completely the same, because Bratton was obviously the head of New York City Transit Police in the 1990s, obviously worked for Rudy Giuliani as the commissioner, and was seen as someone who tackled quality of life policing, and that was not something that Bill de Blasio necessarily wanted to pursue.
both of these progressives potentially coming in. Again, this race is not over. We don't want to be, inaugurating Zohran Mamdani tonight, but the idea is they had affordability, inequality as the focus, and they knew if, de Blasio knew, Mamdani knows that if you don't take care of public safety, you can't do that other stuff in New York City, right? You have to take care of that, number one. You have to pick up the trash and all those things. So again, it's sort of a hedging of a bet of, I want to do all this affordability stuff, so I better cover my other flank on things like policing.
Anti-Semitism was again raised. I mean, we've seen this again and again during the campaign. I wasn't sure that we were going to continue to see Andrew Cuomo harp on this tonight, but it came up again, and Curtis Lee was sort of piled on. They both say that he's being, divisive. At one point, Cuomo said he was hate-mongering and creating division. And, we've heard Mamdani come back again and again and say that he's going to not only protect the Jewish community, but celebrate and cherish them. He talks about what he's going to do to, add funding to protect houses of worship and so forth. But it just seems like this does not go away. And even though it hasn't hurt Mamdani, right? I mean, this was something that we saw come up, particularly in the final weeks of the primary, and it didn't seem to hurt him there, but it also just doesn't, it just continues to dog him.
It certainly does continue to dog him. And Curtis Lewa, he brought up a very personal moment and a personal story. He talked about his two youngest sons who are being raised as Jewish. And he said for his sons and other Jewish New Yorkers, there is some concern about Zohran Mamdani becoming the next mayor. I was in a synagogue on the Upper West Side just a few days ago where Andrew Cuomo addressed the congregants in the room, and people there, many of them did express a real concern, a real fear about Zohran Mamdani and what a New York City might look like under him. They are concerned about a climate, about rising anti-Semitism, and they want a mayor that is firm in saying that I will not stand for that. And I do think, part of the challenge with Zohran Mamdani is that he's also being tagged as being anti-Semitic so often that, it's in some ways New Yorkers may not even be hearing what he's actually saying and may more be hearing what other people are saying about him. But it is a real concern for many New Yorkers, and Curtis Lewa took the moment to bring in a personal story to explain this. And sitting in that synagogue just a few nights ago, I did hear the real concern. So I don't know what the path forward is for Zohran Mamdani to make people, better understand where he's coming from and how he would lead in creating a city that is just as just for Jewish New Yorkers as everyone else. But clearly he needs to figure out a way to get that message through, because it hasn't really landed fully the way he might hope it has.
And he's been making that effort. I mean, he's been visiting temples, he's been visiting synagogues. I mean, it was just the other weekend where he visited the synagogue that is where Charles Schumer, Senator Charles Schumer actually attends. Obviously, we know that Schumer, the highest elected Jewish leader in the United States, who has not endorsed Zohran Mamdani, and in part it's because of his skepticism and his questioning of where Mamdani stands on Israel and obviously the war in Gaza and how he thinks about this particular issue. We know he's been going. Whether he's making those inroads, it appears that he is, but perhaps not enough to appease so many voters that are going to be heading to the polls.
The politics on this issue are kind of mirroring the politics on almost every other issue in the city. The progressive Jews are with Mamdani, and lots of moderate Jews are with Cuomo, and lots of conservative Jews are choosing between Sliwa and Cuomo. So, I don't know that any of this is changing at any point, because we've been having the same discussion for months and months now, from the primary to the general. It's important for people to keep airing their concerns and for Mamdani to address them, but it doesn't seem like much is moving, and I don't know that there's that many voters undecided if this is the most important material to them.
All right, guys, we are going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere at home. We will be live all through the 9 o'clock hour to bring you more analysis on tonight's debate. Stay with us.
Before Spectrum TV, I was always at wit's end. So many apps.
So what did you guys think about that? Definitely this one was different than the last debate. I'm watching the comments for like the last 2 hours, and there was definitely a lot more vigor coming out of Curtis, where he was defending his positions. Yet I'm still not convinced that Zohran Mamdani is the mayor for New York City. other than just us. So some of you are asking who I am. I am Marianne Pizzatola, the New York City Retirees President. We represent about 500,000 municipal retirees from the city of New York. We have represented this group of retirees, about 250,000 of them that are Medicare eligible. And who is that? That's your retirees, they're disabled, they're elderly. My oldest retiree is 104 years old. And when you're older or disabled or a line of duty spouse or are disabled children, you're on a federal public health benefit known as Medicare. Medicare was one of the greatest civil rights achievements ever because it gave people, no matter what their skin color or their income level was, equal access to health benefits. So many of you know about Medicaid. That is for low-income people. Medicare is for the elderly and disabled. So when you are Medicare eligible, this is your health care. Well, when you are a City of New York employee, you are on, as by statute, by a law, the city gives you health coverage. We've kind of traded off our health raises, not making as much as the private sector does for this healthcare in our future, like a deferred compensation of sort. And unfortunately, through this whole process, 2021 was when Mayor Adams tried to take away our healthcare in the middle of a pandemic. And then when we won the first time in court, the first injunction, he then sacked us with costs that are putting many of our elderly in medical debt. So we've been in court now for the last 4 years, and this is why we're here. Of the 3 candidates today, there's only one candidate that for the last 10 months will not speak with us, will not work on this healthcare issue, will not address the medical debt that our retirees are going into by this administration. This started under Bloomberg. It was implemented under de Blasio, and then it got delayed, and then Eric Adams put it through. So this is why we fight, and this is why we keep coming to do these events and broadcast this political brouhaha, because they're not listening. And of the 3 candidates, Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo are the only 2 that sat with us. They'll be on our show again on Friday. We'll be broadcasting their personal interviews with our membership. And Zohran Mamdani will not meet with us, speak with us, and we represent 500,000 people. And 250,000 of those people are New York City retirees on Medicare. You're elderly, you're disabled, and your most vulnerable people, your disabled children, line of duty spouses, 9/11 survivors and widows. This is crucial that he wants to declare that he is, even while we're on this live today, this debate, his team is tweeting that he is the mayor of all New Yorkers, and yet 500,000 people he is ignoring. So let's go back to the after chat, and I'll still be here.
Hear what Curtis Sliwa had to say about his performance tonight. I mean, Sliwa definitely, in some ways, he has come off as sort of a moderate, sensible voice in these debates and in the campaign in general. But you also see the differences, right? I mean, tonight, even in the lightning round where, he's talking about raise the age and on Rikers, and, we heard him talk again and again about bail reform. I mean, he's clearly to the right of these candidates, particularly when it comes to law and order issues.
He is, or he wants to be portrayed as the public safety candidate, but at the same time, he's a Republican, but he's not a MAGA Republican. I mean, I'm thinking about the first debate question about the news of the day or the news of yesterday, obviously the immigration raid that occurred on Canal Street, and he was quite measured there, saying that, ICE should not be detaining people like that, and that it should really be left to the NYPD to do this type of enforcement if people are in fact selling, well, we know people are in fact selling illegal goods on Canal Street. So I think that there are other issues where he is not necessarily as conservative as one might think, and that's probably just going to be the vein of a New York City Republican.
He's also the only one out there saying he's against congestion pricing remaining in place. Right. He's against City of Yes. The other 2 like those zoning reforms. So there's, a lot of ways in which he is the sort of conservative candidate in the race. But I agree, you know, that's sort of like a classic New York Republican answer on the immigration. It was also a very funny Curtis Lewa moment talking about how much he's walked Canal Street. He probably knows half those guys out there, right? I mean, you know, different candidate, different.
He's got a personal anecdote for just about every question, and you know, some anecdote about the Guardian Angels, how they somehow were involved or intervened in some situation. I think we have our Dan Rivley now, who is standing by at a debate watch party hosted by the Campaign Finance Board. This is out in Prospect Lefferts Gardens in Brooklyn. Dan, I believe you can hear me. Tell me what the folks there had to say after the debate.
Yeah, Bobby, I loved engaged voters. The people here were listening. Yeah. So we love engaged voters. They were paying attention to the debate. They were reacting to the zingers and the criticism and the sharp elbows being thrown. I wanted to bring back our undecided voter that we started with, Mr. Andrew Beard, and another undecided voter, Nadine Sylvester. Mr. Beard, I want to start with you. You came in here undecided. You've said you have now decided. Who are you going to vote for, and what stood out to you in the debate that made you make this decision?
Okay. There were a few things that really made the decision for me, and I'll say this much: there was some appearance of inexperience, and because of that inexperience, I said, you know, I don't think I want to go with that. And then there was some talking points that I heard that I thought, you know, reminded me of a party that I just don't want to have any parts of.
And just to Nadine, tell me, why are you still undecided after watching this debate?
I'm undecided because I still did not hear any practical steps to get to solutions for some of the issues that are facing New Yorkers: affordable housing, education, crime. I didn't hear anything of like, these are the 5 things that I would do. It's more like sound bites, like we're just gonna make affordable housing. It's a little bit more complex than that, and I would like to hear more around like, what are the actual things that you're gonna do? How are you gonna reach across the aisle, especially as a of a specific party? How do you reach across the aisle and get the other parties to sign on to your bill in order to pass legislation?
Nadine, Andrew, thank you so much, our voters here. And, you know, I was talking to voters, and, you know, some of the things that stood out to them, one, people wanted to hear more from Mamdani and his proposals. They didn't like that he dodged some of the questions. Cuomo, some disappointment that he had been governor and we're still dealing with some issues. And then there were people who just didn't really like the mudslinging. They wanted something a little bit more substantive. Here's a listen to some of the voters we spoke to during and after the debate. Take a listen. What did you think about Mamdani?
That's the one I feel that doesn't have as much experience, and it kind of showed when he's kind of skirted some of the questions. I was hoping that he'd give more substance. Yes, and Cuomo, of course, he's the one with the scandal, and he was in a position to, you know, when he's blaming the state, the other candidates were correct. He was the one there. And then Sweela, I just think that he's a fearmonger.
We've seen how the primary went, and at this point in time, you know, we keep hearing everyone say, but we know how this is going to go. Mamdani has the biggest vision that I feel out of the other 2 candidates.
I'm decided, but I am not happy with the choice that I am going to make.
Can I ask you who you're deciding on?
I will not say, but I'm not happy about it. But if I'm thinking about a person's experience, if I'm thinking about political experience, someone who can tackle the President of the United States, then I want to make sure that's the candidate that I'm leaning towards.
And one thing all the voters had in common, regardless of who they're voting for, if they've decided or not decided, they were really concerned about how to make it in New York, the affordability, a good place to live, and safe streets for them and their families. That really united all the voters here, Bobby.
So, Dan, I mean, it's a limited sample size, but it sounds like these arguments about the lack of experience of Zohran Mamdani have maybe kind of started to seep in a little bit. I mean, this idea that he hasn't been in the assembly for very long, doesn't have experience running anything, didn't propose bills even having to do with some of the issues that he's talking about now. Did those seem to resonate with people?
You know, Bobby, when those criticisms were being made from Cuomo and Sliwa against Mamdani, I heard someone say, drop the mic. That was a drop the mic moment. So it was definitely something a few of the people watching picked up on. And a lot of people wanted to hear more from Mamdani. He made a lot of bold promises, and he really was able to talk about his vision, but he got tripped up on getting pressed on some of the details, and I think some really potent criticism from Cuomo and Sliwa, and then going back on his records, you know, with Cuomo saying, you know, you were in Albany, you didn't introduce legislation on this issue you say you care about. I think that kind of stuck with voters who want to vote for Mamdani, but they still like the experience that Cuomo has, even if there are concerns about his baggage and the fact that we're dealing with some of the same issues we were dealing with back when Cuomo was governor, Bobby.
All right, Dan, thank you. I want to ask you guys about the experience question, because we heard it from Cuomo. You know, again, he talks about Mamdani never having accomplished anything, not passing any bills. But then Mamdani often turns it back around and says, you were governor during this time. You know, what did you do to build affordable housing? And I thought there was a funny moment where Cuomo had said that the city was getting screwed by the state all these years. Yeah. Mamdani says, well, who was running the state while the city was getting screwed? But I mean, the argument seems to be landing.
The experience question, I'm going to bring up another parallel, is, you know, there was a state senator from Illinois who became a U.S. senator from Illinois, and there was questions about whether or not.
From Illinois.
There you go. There were questions about his experience. Obviously, I'm talking about the former President Barack Obama. And there are some parallels. You know, that Obama obviously called Mamdani after he won the primary, the day after, the morning after. And I think what Mamdani has been able to, you know, resonate with so many New Yorkers, this idea of hope, the idea of a future, of a better future. It's this vision that we haven't really seen from a candidate in the New York City mayor's race in quite some time. I mean, the criticism of Eric Adams in the last race is that he didn't have this big agenda and this big vision. So I think that kind of drowns out the inexperience argument, even though it is obviously resonating with some voters that dance with.
I think it somewhat drowns out the experience question until you have a day like yesterday, when you see federal law enforcement agents on Canal Street, you know, regular New Yorkers commuting to and from work, jumping in and protesting. I think for a lot of New Yorkers, it sets the tone about where we are politically, understanding that President Donald Trump is in office. And I do hear from some voters, I want to vote based on hope. I want to vote based on this idealism. But we also have to be practical, that there is President Donald Trump in the White House right now. He can hurt or harm New York City in a long list of ways, particularly when it comes to federal funding. And so I think that's part of the reason why we may see some of the voters, you know, tonight, the people that we just heard from speaking with, Dan Rivley, some of the voters I've spoken with recently, say, you know, maybe we do need this experience. I think it's because of the climate that we're in right now. People feel like they might not be able to take a risk or take a chance. They feel like we need a really strong leader in New York City as mayor right now to respond to some of what might be coming.
Cuomo had probably his strongest moments of the night going at Mamdani on the experience question. He had a few times where he really had energy behind it. The crowd was probably playing into that a little bit. He looked just more alive than we've seen him in other settings in this campaign, whether it's in the primary or the general, and he had some really strong moments there. But Mamdani turns them around sometimes, as you were getting at. He said, we experienced your experience, and that's part of the problem now, right? So, you know, it goes both ways, but I do think there's a lot of voters. And one thing we're seeing, I think, in this race is a little bit of this new dynamic where the primary in June gives us this long general election. So there's like more time with Mamdani to be sort of poking at this lack of experience and like, so you're only running on these three things? Well, what about mayoral control of school? Where do you really stand on that? And there's sort of more time to sort of pick him apart as the front runner now between the primary and the general.
I think that's why we're seeing in the polls, he's kind of hit a cap, which is around 47%, which is not a majority of New Yorkers want to support him. And if it was a head-to-head contest, I know we talk about this a lot about how that's not going to happen. No. So we shouldn't even talk about the head-to-head contest. But if it, you know, it's.
But the electorate is basically 50-50.
Yes.
The electorate is like 50 with Mamdani and 50 not.
And
you know, if the polling is right.
It could be the majority of New Yorkers don't want Mamdani, but the majority of New Yorkers are being split between between two candidates, so it'll be really difficult to topple him as of this point.
All right, guys, we're actually going to go back to LaGuardia Community College and check in once again with our own Errol Lewis, who is now, are you still inside? I believe you're still inside the auditorium. Errol, it might be hard. Might be hard to, to make a judgment at this point, but do you think what we heard from on stage there tonight is going to move the needle in any way as we head now just less than 2 weeks toward Election Day?
I think it'll help voters lock in whatever choice they've made. There's a shrinking number of undecided voters, and by definition, that number shrinks to zero by the time Election Day is over. So as people make their decisions, you want to make sure that you've heard what you think you heard, what you think you know about the candidate is where they're really coming from. And to that extent, I think the candidates really were in large part talking to their base and making sure their base or the people who have already decided to support them have all of the reasons, have all of the talking points, have all of the assurances that they need to go ahead. And that's what you want basically in the closing days of a campaign. People are going to start casting real ballots for the mayor of New York on Saturday. It's just a few days from now.
Errol, we were just talking about this on set, but there's a little bit of news made today with the news that Zohran Mamdani is going to ask the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, to stay on. That was something that he confirmed from right up there on the debate stage.
Yes, that's right. There was a little bit of news there. Of course, it cries out for clarification that we didn't necessarily get tonight because there are some things that Jessica Tisch has said about the crime problem, in particular the issue of raising the age, whether or not we hold certain teenagers criminally responsible for violent crimes that they're accused of. She and Mamdani are not on the same page when it comes to that. So the question right off the bat becomes, okay, well, what does that mean? She has called for an increase in resources, whereas Zohran Mamdani wants to reorganize rather than bring additional funding to the NYPD. So, it's one thing to sort of make the political point, and it was conveniently dropped about an hour or two before the debate began, which ensured that it would be part of our conversation, but it does leave some unanswered questions as well.
Errol, I always like to ask if there's anything you guys didn't get to that you wanted to. Were there any topics that kind of fell off the table, or even any of the lightning round questions that you really
come on, Errol?
There were some pretty good lightning round questions, but we're going to save those for another debate, Bobby. There were a number of issues that we were prepared to talk about if we'd had a chance. One of them, just to give you an example, is hunger in New York. The estimated 2 million or so people who are either getting food directly through SNAP benefits or from soup kitchens and so forth. There's a related question about free breakfasts in the schools. Yes, technically it's available, but in practice it's left up to individual principals whether or not they're going to extend the period when people can get that free breakfast past the first period. Very technical. You kind of have to get into the guts of it. But what that means in effect is that if you don't show up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get any breakfast. And so, there are a lot of people who are actually not taking advantage of it. The question to the candidates would be, how are you going to fix that particular problem? We had probably a half dozen really gritty kind of policy questions of that nature. Are you going to increase the number of paraprofessionals so that teachers have the support they need to be effective in the classroom? A number of different questions like that.
All right, Errol Lewis, thanks again. Great job out there tonight. We are going to let you get on with your evening, and I'm going to bring you back to our panel. We were talking earlier about the ICE agents raiding the vendors on Canal Street yesterday. We're going to.
So I want to wrap this up because there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of people that are on our live tonight and they don't know why we're here. So I'm Marianne Pizzatola. I'm New York City Retirees President. We run an organization of New York City municipal workers. So many of you are here. Many of you are not in New York. Many of you, I don't know why you're here, but you find this interesting. But we are an organization of over 500,000 retirees retired from New York City civil service, police, fire, teachers, laborers, construction workers, electricians, paras that helped out in the schools, bus drivers. These are people who run the city of New York and have run the city of New York for decades. And so this is why this is really important, because when we were working all of these decades, you have like our oldest retiree, I said before, is 104 years old. So I want to put this in perspective because many of you don't know what that looks like how much these people are making. Back in 1980, when most of you weren't born who are still here watching, our retirees were still working. Police and fire were known as like your uniform service, were the top paid in the city of New York, and their top pay was $15,000 in 1980. That was the highest paid municipal worker in the city of New York, was a police officer or firefighter. 1980. So they retired, which meant they'd been on the job for at least 20 years. Today, they are still alive. And what is their pension? So if they retired making a salary at $15,000, they take a 50% pension. Let's just round that off and say $8,000, a little bit less. Then every year, they don't get a raise. They get what they call a COLA, or cost of living adjustment. And it's only between 1% and 3% of the first $18,000 of their pension if they make an $18,000 pension. What do they make today in 2025? $26,000. So when the Mayor Eric Adams went to go force this population into Medicare Advantage, a privatized for-profit predatory managed care program, and then sack them with copays that are amounting to about $50 to $60 every time they go to the doctor, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week if they're going for cancer treatment, if they're going for physical therapy, cardiac rehab. It is putting them in medical debt. And why did that happen? Was because some of the active union presidents of our former unions, because when you retire, you're no longer in a union, the city of New York encouraged them to sell off our retiree health care plans, choices, and our federal public health benefit of Medicare to finance their raises. We were considered obsolete. They kept saying to them, don't worry, it's the same. It's not the same. And for those of you that are young that don't understand, you want to say, oh, well, Zoran won't privatize your Medicare. Let me educate you guys, because that is not what he's saying. On his Facebook page, he speaks to active workers and their unions. Why? Because if you look at his website, his team is made up of all union presidents because he wants the union money. He wants the boots on the ground. He wants the canvassers. He wants the people to be able to do the campaign calls. He wasn't interested in working with our group, our retirees. Now, of our 500,000 people, 75% of them live in New York. So why wouldn't you? They would be your biggest daytime army. And one of the things that actually Curtis said was interesting when he was talking about the pets and the animals was that, there's that Gandhi statement that the true test of any society is how you treat your most vulnerable. Well, our society's most vulnerable is your elderly and your disabled and our disabled children. 9/11 responders. Some idiot on here before said, 9/11 is over, lady. It's 20 years ago. Well, we are losing first responders and people who worked in contaminated buildings every month. Remember, on 9/11, New York City Fire Department lost 343 people. Yet we have surpassed that number of deaths from people who died due to World Trade Center exposures, people who are suffering still today. So it's important that you understand why we make this constant fight about protecting our healthcare. It's because when you're older or retired or ill or disabled, that's what you have. You fight to be able to stay alive. So if we earned and paid for this, why should someone sell it off? And when we understand that we have been asking for Zoran's team to meet with us since January, and they've refused our emails. Even El Bizgard Church doesn't respond back to us. We have a government liaison. They don't respond to her either. We've invited them to a documentary that we had shown yesterday at the Tribeca screening room in Lower Manhattan. They didn't come. And we gave them a pledge that we gave everyone else, all the other candidates, whether city council or for mayor. Zohran Mamdani is the only one who has not signed the pledge to protect our healthcare issues. Now, what are the issues? Because many of you think it's just Medicare Advantage, and it's not. So we said that we'll support any elected, any candidate that would not force a retiree into a predatory for-profit Medicare Advantage plan, that you would protect the federal public health benefit of Medicare that we earned and paid for, that they would not sack us with these medical copays that are putting our retirees in medical debt. I have one retiree in debt over $3,800 today. The doctors won't even see her because she can't afford to pay the copays. Her pension is $26,000. Our healthcare literally dies the day we die. So if we die, our dependents, our spouses, our disabled children that are on our healthcare plan, they lose their healthcare literally the day we die. Why wouldn't Zohran want to address that issue and say, and our ask was give a 30 or 60 or 90-day extension so that the day we die, they don't lose their health care as well, that it gives them a buffer period to secure health care benefits, right? Then the third benefit issue was that this is just, it's insane. The law in the city requires that we get reimbursed for paying for our premium for Medicare. So when you're older and you're eligible for Medicare, you're on Social Security. You no longer have a paycheck. So you have your pension and a little Social Security. Now, your Medicare, which pays the first 80% of your health bill, is paid for by your in part of your Social Security check. You still have that last 20% that's not covered by Medicare. That's where the city health plan comes in. So right now, you guys are young. Most of you are under 65 and you're working, and you have a healthcare plan from your company or the city that pays for 100% of your bill. No, sugar mama, that's not what COBRA is for. COBRA doesn't cover Medicare eligible retirees. COBRA is if you're working and you lose your insurance. We earned and paid for our health care. That's the difference. You're trying to steal something from us that we earned and paid for. That is a problem. We're telling you don't do this. So the law in the city of New York requires, because that was an arrangement that we made back in 1967, the mayor then, Mayor John Lindsay, said, I want to give New York City employees and retirees health care, and I want to pay for it. And that was one of the reasons why people would go to work for the city of New York, was because you might get crappy wages. You know, you wouldn't get rich working for the city. You're a municipal worker, but you would have good benefits and you would have good a pension when you retire. So it was a form of deferred compensation. And that's why people did it. That's why our generation did it. So now we are retired. We're not in a union. We're not an employee. We still have earned our healthcare benefits. And we want to make sure that they stay what we kept. Promises made, promises kept. We worked for you for all those years of crappy ass wages in all sorts of crappy weather, with shitty uniforms and whatever it was, and yet you want to steal from me after I already kept my end of the bargain. So in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic, Eric Adams moved to close the deal that Bill de Blasio started and force retirees into a predatory for-profit Medicare Advantage plan that many doctors and hospitals would not accept because it is a narrow network, and that these plans had a lot of prior authorization that, if you follow this in the news, definitely says that they deny your care because they want the profit. They don't want to pay for you to live because you're worth more to them dead. Or at least not getting your health care before you're dead. This was the big fight that everyone had with United Healthcare. So this is one of the things that we had asked them for. And when we had put this out that we were looking to meet with every candidate that was running for office, we wanted to sit with them and discuss these issues, not to be forced into Medicare Advantage, to not force copays onto this population that's a low-income group. Look, District Council 37, 2/3 of their retirees make under $35,000. 1/3 of them make under $12,000 a year. Why is Zohran not meeting with our organization over this issue? Why is he okay that our healthcare dies the day we die, leaving our dependents without healthcare, and he doesn't want to talk about this issue? Why is Zohran not wanting to talk about the law requires the city reimburse us for our premium that we are paying all year from January to December, and we don't get it reimbursed for 16 to 22 months later. This is not someone who should be mayor of the city of New York. He's been tweeting the very time that we've been on this call now, which is over 3 hours and 10 minutes, to say he will be the mayor of all New Yorkers. Well, if you have 500,000 people who you refuse to speak to, are you really for all New Yorkers? No, you're absolutely not for all New Yorkers. You're not for New Yorkers. You're for who you think will serve you best. And that so far, that's really just the young population that is believing you can give them everything for free. Why am I still here? No, you can't get health care and you can't afford to get treatment. Well, we actually have been able to get our health care. We earned and paid for it since we were working for decades for the city. We actually worked for a living. And we paid for that. We earned it. And if you look at your paychecks, look at every one of your paychecks. For those of you that are working, look at your paycheck. Your paycheck says Medicare tax. You paid for Medicare, and so did we. So there's people who are hung up around the axle and fooled that Zohran Mamdani is the guy for you. Well, that's great. He is for you. You're not going to listen to the facts that here is a man who's in his 30s, who is currently a sitting assemblyman, where we have a bill for the last 2 years sitting in the New York State Assembly, and he's not on that bill either. Is he really to protect your health care? No, sugar mama, he's not really to protect your health care. He has his own agenda. And if he's this young, rich guy that doesn't want to talk to a group of elderly retirees who are struggling to make ends meet, because look, they have the same affordability issues you do. They live in the city of New York. They have issues with rent. They have issues with electricity, issues with transportation. Many of them are disabled. Accessoride. They have to call for an accessoride, wait for the person to get there, and then that's if they don't cancel. And then if they have to go to the doctor and use accessoride, they have to call them like 48 hours in advance and then hope the person shows up on time to take them to the doctor. Now they're at the doctor and the doctor's office is visit. Now they have to call to get picked up. You know how long they wait there for that? Older adult issues in the city of New York are not being addressed, and they're not being addressed by Zohran Mamdani. And that's a problem. So when you say, oh, well, he's just not meeting with you, big deal. It is a big deal because we represent about 500,000 people. And these people who live in the city of New York, they're just as important as everybody else. So why would you ignore them? And when there's an issue right now where there's a law that we've been fighting in the city of New York for 4 years in court, we have had 11 wins in court across 3 separate cases, one all the way up to the New York State Court of Appeals. And how did we do it? Grassroots fundraising, all from these thousands and thousands of people who have small incomes. We did it to help protect ourselves. Why? Because elected officials like Zohran Mamdani would not support us. That's shocking. So no, that's exactly why we fight. So we hosted this live because we wanted to see, would they actually discuss a retiree healthcare issue? Because many of our retirees have been working on this issue to make this a public issue. Yesterday, literally last night, we had Dr. Barbara Burney, who is a former CUNY professor, public health expert, and she did a documentary called The Power to Heal. And we had that displayed yesterday. We showed a part of that video, her documentary, at the Tribeca Screening Room to educate people on the federal public health benefit of Medicare. Because back in the 60s, people didn't always have access to health care. Whether you were Black, you were white, you had different levels of care. And the interesting thing that people commented about last night is that one of the things that they fought about, well, one of the issues that was a major issue back in the 60s was that women of color and their babies were dying in childbirth. Do you know that New York City Council is still trying to fight this very same issue? This is still a healthcare issue disparity that we are still experiencing. That should not be. And meanwhile, Medicare was passed in 1965. And yet there's still a disparity in health access. That means women are not getting the care that they need. So why would you privatize a federal for-profit predatory plan and force people into a plan like that that would prevent them from accessing health care, especially at the most vulnerable time of their life? No, sugar mama, I'm not going off all half. See, and I think, honestly, I think sugar mama is probably Kate. So Kate, not Katie. Katie, you're a different person. Kate Connors, you sound like sugar mama or you're within her circle. Because what you don't understand is it's not about overvaluing a pledge or a pathway to achieve them. You know what it is? If you have a candidate that's willing to sit with you and learn your issue, that means that person, man or woman, they are open to discussing the needs that you have as a constituent. You want your elected officials to hear you. Yes, I know she's a troll, Jen. But if they're not willing to talk to you, see, and that was point 4, that in order to get our endorsement of our organization, the candidate has to agree to open communication with our organization as a candidate and once they're elected. If Zohran Mamdani will not speak with us when he's a candidate, he sure as hell isn't going to speak with us as an elected official. Now, that's us today. But what happens if you need something tomorrow? You're on his bandwagon today. But let's say you go to him with an issue he doesn't want to address. Then what? Is he going to ignore you? He's ignoring 500,000 people right now and for the last 10 months. And these are people that don't have the time to fight. They're in their 80s, 90s, 104 years old is my oldest retiree. Do you really think I can keep dragging them out on a street corner in front of City Hall to protest all season long? No. It is criminal to make us do this. And yet, Adrienne Adams, the speaker, Mayor Eric Adams, the mayor, are the two culprits in the city council that have the control right now to fix this. Eric doesn't want to admit that he screwed up, and Adrienne Adams is in the pocket of the two unions, the major unions that pushed this thing through, that caused us to fight this to begin with 4 years ago. Zohran is a sitting assemblyman from Astoria in the New York State Assembly. Our bill is in the state legislature that would protect every New York State municipal retiree from this very issue. Is Zohran on this legislation for the last 2 years? No. So don't tell me that it's just a pledge. No, it's more than the pledge. We've outlined 4 issues in communication. And if the most simple thing that this young man can't do is sit with 500,000 people and talk to them about the one thing that someone in this population needs to stay alive, he doesn't deserve your vote. So we've said we're down to the wire. Friday, October 24th. Every Friday, you guys, well, most of you don't know me, but you know me today. Every Friday, I do this Friday Night Live every single Friday, and I update our members and we tell them what their homework is on what advocacy. It's a grassroots fight that we have that week. What is going on in the courts? We tell them everything every Friday. Take all their questions, just like we're kind of trying to do here. But here today, we had over 15,000 people on this, and it's hard for all of us to kind of go through these questions. This is why this is important, because right now you think this might just be our fight. And, you know, some people call older people boomers. I hate that phrase. It's a degrading term to call someone a boomer. If older New Yorkers are trying to explain something to you that we are trying to protect, a federal public health benefit, this will be your future. This is our right now. This is your tomorrow. And I'm explaining to you that back in the 60s, President Lyndon Johnson, New York City Mayor John Lindsay, who Zohran says that was one of his favorite mayors, then he would respect the fact that John Lindsay wanted to give free health care to employees and retirees of the city of New York. Because back then, it was mostly men that worked and the wives stayed home with the children. He wanted, in cases where the moms wanted to take the babies to the doctor, or she was sick or the babies were sick, that the husband can still come to work, but that the wives and the children had health care. Times have definitely changed. Sometimes you have stay-at-home moms, sometimes you have stay-at-home dads. Sometimes they all work and you have a lot of children, but yet you still need a workforce that's healthy so that they can come to work and the children and the spouses are still healthy as well. Healthcare in the city of New York is a benefit. And the mayor then in 1966 understood that with the advent of Medicare, and Medicare, as I say, it was a civil rights achievement because it did do away with the Black waiting rooms and the white waiting rooms, and that the hospitals wouldn't take Black people in to care for them. There's definitely still racial issues today. I'm not talking about that. Then it was a hell of a lot worse. And you have to understand that history where a hospital would turn someone away because of their skin color or because of their income level. Medicare said if a hospital or a doctor is going to get a federal reimbursement, then they have to take everyone. And that is why today the federal public health benefit of Medicare, Medicaid, even for low income people, is accepted by doctors, 99% of doctors in America, because hospitals and doctors want to be able to see patients to get that money. They know they're going to get it. It's a federal money. So knowing that, the President Johnson said, we will give you this federal monies if you take these patients. And they passed this law in 1965. And that became known as the Medicare and Medicaid Act. So it was touted by Martin Luther King and union leaders, and it was one of the greatest achievements ever because it gave everyone the same equal access to care that they didn't have before. And they had to end segregation in the hospitals, where hospitals would have a Black wing and a white wing. And they said, no, you can't do this anymore. You have to treat people as humans. And in our fight, our team is known for, at our protest, where we will always say healthcare is a human right, not a political fight. But yet you have politicians willing to make it political. Zoran is making this political. Why? Because if you look at his team, he has Bill de Blasio, who was the mayor at the time that this whole mess with the retirees started. Dean Fulihan, who was the Office of Management and Budget, he was also his first deputy mayor on Zoran's team. He has DC 37's Henry Garrido, and he has the United Federation of Teachers, Michael Mulgrew leadership, who pushed us into this predatory for-profit Medicare Advantage plan. Union leaders should never privatize, and you sure as hell shouldn't privatize healthcare. You have the entire country up in arms over companies like United Healthcare, who are known to delay and deny people's healthcare. Predatory for-profit companies. And yet you had the two largest unions in the city of New York doing this to retirees to get a raise that we would never even benefit from. They literally sold off their older population to finance raises for young people. Now, young people should have raises. Oh, yes, they should, but not on our backs. We built this city and we built this union, and we worked. We kept our end of the deal. So you don't sell off your older population. So that explains to you what Medicare is. Medicare Advantage, for profit. They get, Medicare literally says to a company like an Aetna or a Humana or a Blue Cross or United Healthcare, they literally say, hey, Medicare, we want you to administer healthcare for Marianne. And we're going to pay you like $2,500 a month to do her benefits so we don't have to. And you can keep whatever money you don't spend. So if Marianne's healthy and she doesn't go to the doctor 14 times a month, United Healthcare is really happy. But what happens when Marianne needs to start going to the doctor a lot? And then they're going, oh, geez, Marianne's going to the doctor way too much. We're going to have to delay or deny that care for her. Always, we're not going to make our profit margins. And that's exactly what they're doing. So this is why people get frustrated, is because they can't get a test or a procedure approved. And we're seeing this happen across the country, not even just in Medicare, but in even just general healthcare plans for everybody, whether you're Medicare or not Medicare. So why would you make it so much more harder? New York City Transit retirees, these are the people that drive your buses and drive your trains, they were forced into Medicare Advantage by Aetna. We've talked about, and we've had some of those retirees on my radio show on WBAI, where one of the retirees who lives in Arizona is in his 70s, and he was on Medicare. His doctor was 5 minutes down the road. Then when they forced him onto Medicare Advantage, the nearest doctor was an hour away. How do you want someone in their 70s or in their 80s to drive for an hour to go to the doctor? It's not possible. And in many instances, if they're not well, It makes it impossible. So this is why we keep educating people as to what our fight is and why we're still in court on 2 of our 3 cases, because we won the first case all the way up to the highest court in the state of New York. And yet of the 3 candidates that want to represent all of New Yorkers, there's only one that won't even discuss this issue, won't talk about healthcare. And yet you still have some people that are diehard Zoranis and want to make sure that he gets elected, but he's not protecting this population. And you should ask why. Because if he was so wonderful and he had a vision or such a plan that would protect the elderly and the disabled and 9/11 widows and widowers and disabled first responders and our disabled children, why wouldn't he have the conversation? And I've already told you, it's more than just Medicare. So Medicare Advantage is the default plan in Project 2025. You've heard this for a long time. What is Project 2025? And it's that blueprint by the Heritage Foundation that either Trump owns or doesn't own or likes it, doesn't like, but he sure as hell, he put Russell Vought, who wrote it, as the Office of Management and Budget leader, right? So if the default plan in that Project 2025 blueprint is Medicare Advantage, and we're already telling you it is, go to page like 465, the default plan for every American, if this plan gets put into place, you would be off a federal public health benefit and forced into privatized managed care in this blueprint. Wouldn't the next mayor want to make sure that New Yorkers are protected? We really should, right? So he has a lot of explaining to do why he's not. And you can't really keep blaming the Republicans for destroying healthcare when the Democrats or the socialists are doing it themselves. So here you have 3 candidates: Curtis Lewa, Andrew Cuomo, and Zohran Mamdani. And only one is not protecting healthcare. The other 2 sat with me. Andrew Cuomo sat with me for 2 hours. Curtis sat with me for over an hour and a half. We talked about these issues. We talked about the entire issues on the pledge. The pledge had all of those issues that I explained to you, as well as the communication, and that they would either support or introduce legislation to make sure that they protected a retiree when they got into office. Only one. There's a bill right now in the New York State Assembly that Zohran can be on, and he's not. And he told the reporter he wouldn't support the healthcare bill in the city. He said it wouldn't be needed if he was there. Well, one day you're not going to be there. Am I supposed to get up again and start fighting this shit on City Hall steps for the next 4 years, whether I'm in my 80s, 90s, or 104? If you could fix it, why the hell won't you just freaking fix it? And that's why we're here. So I want to thank all of you for joining our watch party today. This was a pretty cool watch party because you had over 15,000 people. And hopefully you guys learned a few things about healthcare that you didn't know and understand why this population is fighting. So when you see a protest of retirees down on City Hall steps or in front of City Hall protesting, because we're there almost every month, you understand why. Because not only are we fighting to protect ourselves, we're fighting to protect this for you. Because this was promised to you and you pay for this from your very first paycheck. I'm not kidding you. Look at your paycheck. It says Medicare tax. You are paying for this future health benefit for when you are either disabled or when you turn 65 and are no longer working. That's why it's important. And the history of it. Google what Medicare is. Why was the Medicare Act passed in 1965? Let ChatGPT tell you what it is. Let Grok tell you if you're on Grok. I don't care where you look it up. It's important to protect it because people died for it. And that's why it's important. So thank you, Jen Jones. I also, in addition to working for the New York City Fire Department, I'm a retiree. I also have a labor degree. So I love labor history, and I can tell you exactly why some of the things that we've had in labor. And it's important that you know, because this will change your future. Right now, some people are thinking, oh my God, that's really the guy that I'm supporting. And you really do have to learn what your benefits are, what they cost today. Like Medicare cost about $200 a month. Your healthcare plan, if you're a young person, your healthcare plan is $1,000 a month individual and on an average $2,500 a month family. A Medicare person is about $200 for Medicare, the first 80%, and let's just say about $200 a month for that little 20% plan that Medicare doesn't cover. So that's your whole 100% is about $400 a month. We are the least expensive cost because we're on that federal public health benefit. So thank you for listening. And, my opinion is maybe one day Zoran might be a good candidate for mayor or governor or whatever. Today's not that day. And this is the situation that we get in when we have candidates that not everybody's happy with, because then you have to figure out who am I going to vote for? Today's debate was a hell of a lot better than the last debate, and it was definitely more animated. And you got to hear a little bit more, but you also started to see some cracks. I mean, look, Zoran is a very good speaker, and he could be captivating and charismatic, but he doesn't have behind him what he needs. Now, do the other two? That's for you to answer. All I can tell you is who supports a New York City retired worker, who doesn't support the workers. I can give you that evidence because not only is it just me asking to meet with them, our entire team has been asking to meet with his office for 10 months. And that should be telling. So if you want to be the city for everybody, look, I've been on this thing now for 3.5 hours. Most of you I don't know. My people are all throughout here. My retirees are all in this group. But yet something made you watch. And right now this channel is broadcasting. We had over 25,000 people through Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and Instagram tonight. And this will probably get a lot more hits after it still stays on YouTube. There's a reason, because we're passionate about this. This is our life. And so we want you to understand. We thank you for joining us, because you probably didn't think you'd stand up talking to some old lady from New York City retirees. You just said, oh, this is the debate. This is pretty cool. But understand why we fight, because this is your future. And while today New York City retirees are in court fighting for ourselves, we're also trying to preserve this to protect you. I've been flying all day. I literally got home. My eyes are tearing. They're so tired. I literally flew home after doing this documentary on Medicare last night with all of our retirees. I am exhausted, but this is so important. So thank you everyone for listening and asking questions and understanding that sometimes you have to look a little past the glitter and the charisma, because there's more to it. We have to fight for this. Now, for the diehard people that are like New York State health plan, diehard people, understand something. Protect your federal public health benefit, because it's what you have in your hand. Doesn't mean that you don't fight for a national health plan or a single payer type plan or a Medicare for all or whatever it is that you dream of. But this is in your hand, and people died for this. And it is a federal public health benefit that Washington is trying to take away right now. Protect that while you're fighting for something better. Because if you don't, you may not have anything. On that note, I'm going to wash my face and go to sleep. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow, because we're also doing a live for Christy Marmorato from District 13. And then Friday, we will host Curtis Sliwa at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Andrew Cuomo at 6 p.m. So come on and join us and see what we can learn from all of them. Yeah, because Annie, you're right. If young people don't take care of your older people, you are going to end up taking care of them. And they will be, your responsibility. Make sure that they have health care, or you'll be breaking your ass to make sure that your parents or your aunts or your uncles or your cousins will stay alive. Or, and I hate to say this because our young people, we have young people that are disabled. You go to work and you think you're going to be Superman or Superwoman and you're going to live forever. And then one day you step off a curb and you get hit by a bus and then you're disabled. And this would be your health care. So you have to protect this because this is what will be there for you. And this is what the great people that ran this country back in the 60s recognized. And it was to carry through the vision of John F. Kennedy. And when he got killed, Lyndon Johnson picked up that torch and said, we are going to do this as part of the civil rights movement. And they did. Protect that because that's in your hand today. All right, everyone, I'm taking it easy, going to bed. See you tomorrow. Have a great night. Ciao, everybody.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, baby, set in stone. But it's not too late now for you to change your tone. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul. Don't